Hello everyone, my name is Armia, and today, out Clans Part 2! It's been a while coming. I wanted to do this last week, but because of scheduling and migraine and all kinds of other stuff, it took me a little bit longer, but I hope it'll be worth the wait, honestly. Yeah, I'm excited for this. The last part has been very interesting, so now we're going to get into probably Nikolai Kerensky and his shenanigans properly, which, oh boy. Oh boy, because now we're actually in the clans themselves rather than kind of the prelude to their existence. So yeah, this is going to get interesting, I think. Anyway, I'll stop yapping and let's just get right into it, shall we? Oh boy, we're doing Space Station 13 stuff again.
Welcome back, class. I hope you enjoyed your break because we have a lot to catch up on. Last time around, we opened this can of worms called the History of the Clans.
Once again, by the way, I mentioned this last video, but I really like this vibe of the... for one, obviously Space Station 13, you know, broken station, but also just the general... like, sort of old-timey aesthetic, the idea of, like, all the technology in space is always really fun, the sort of cassette futurism, you know? Think like Alien kind of vibe.
This lecture is a continuation, and as such, it will serve as a further primer on the clans and their weird way of life.
Yeah.
So, without further preamble, we shall continue the deep dive on clanner civilization with an investigation into how they diverged from their SLDF roots into what they eventually became.
Hey.
Up to this point, the
Want to point out the fact that it's called A Brave New World, Brave New World Order. If you guys have not read the book Brave New World, I would absolutely recommend it. It is a very good book. It is a dystopian novel, and actually one of the ones that I find more believable than something like 1984.
The only thing that separated clanners from the inner sphere was distance, time, and avowed ideology. Their experiences weren't all that dissimilar from their distant inner sphere cousins, as their civilization, while new, had gone through a similar period of horrific civil war. They had indeed gone to war just as the inner sphere had, and fought along cultural allegiances not dissimilar to simultaneous events some thousand light years distant, and sought a permanent solution to their differences megaton by megaton. But after the...
I think that's kind of the ironic part of the clans, right? Like, they set out to be better and ended up being just the same.
The cessation of the Exodus Civil War and a return to order as imposed by the clans and their architect Nicholas Kerensky, the cultural divergence from inner sphere society that began with the Exodus began to significantly widen. This was the crossroads at which they would find themselves, and the road beyond them, choked with the ashes of their many poor decisions, was all the reminder they needed that there was no turning back. Nicholas Kerensky, ever the cultural magpie, had read the lessons of the past, and in this case creatively applied them to further his own agenda.
Honestly, fair is fair. While Nikolai Kerensky was kind of a nutcase and obviously had a lot of issues, the fact that he goes back to the past is like, alright, so here's all the, like, lessons you can take from this, and he tries to apply them. That's a good thing. That's genuinely, like, that's a good thing for a leader to do. So I will praise him a little bit for that. Emphasis on a little.
Using practices taken from 20th century totalitarian states such as China, Nicholas Kerensky swept away anything he felt burdensome on his new civilization.
Okay. I was literally just praising the guy, but
Anything that didn't fit his utopian ideal of a warrior society was to be swept away, and so, by tightening his grip on every facet of daily life, and leaving zero room for dissent among his populace.
Oh god, he's like one of those guys that thinks Sparta is like the pinnacle of all societies. Oh god.
Nicholas did away with old ways of thinking, old cultural observations, old morals and ethics, old habits, old laws, old uniforms, old ideas, old allegiances, and old practices. Piece by piece, Nicholas Kerensky was forcefully erasing all vestiges of the old inner sphere.
Inner sphere, that's not a bad thing, honestly, because inner sphere bits were the ones that were giving, that were making divisions. The problem being, personally, I wouldn't have made different clans. I would have just been like, we are all one, like, group together, rather than, oh, let's make like a bunch of new factions. Because, yeah.
From cultural identity, ideological biases, language, religious and political beliefs, to even how someone should devote their creativity. Whenever questioned on his chosen methods or reasoning, Nicholas would again remind people of the great wisdom of his father, as established by his own creative, if alternate, interpretations. If they persisted in any measure of dissent, he would ensure they were obedient or silent. Despite avowing a meritocracy away from the inherited power structure of the inner sphere, he had set himself up as the head of what was quickly becoming a quasi-police state, and further, he was, by his own estimation, the sole inheritor and now protector of everything Starleague stood for.
I mean, yeah, like, that's pretty common. We're gonna make a meritocracy, guys, but actually, I'll be the one in power, because obviously, I'm the best at everything. I mean, duh, like, come on. Very classic dictator stuff.
He assumed the mantle of responsibility his father had worn, and despite wanting to, at least in his own skewed vision, uphold the grand idealism of Starleague, he managed to create a totalitarian regime that punished everything from wrongdoing to poor fucking grammar, to prevent a slide toward the old destructive ways of the inner sphere and ensure the system of order endured in the fragile years after the Exodus Civil War. He took a very hard line on what would be termed unclan-like behavior.
I just want to mention really quickly the whole, like, poor grammar thing. The mental image of somebody, like, making, like, you know, you misspell one word and, like, the police shows up is very funny, but also kind of tragic, you know, like... It does kind of show the clans are not a nice place to live.
After all, they had nearly destroyed everything in the first conflict. A second would mean annihilation.
They're not wrong there, and like, I can sort of understand the idea of, like, okay, we're gonna take a hard line because of that. Like, part of me does get that. The other part of me is like, guys, can do this in another way.
As this was in practice, a state with no room for alternate power structures in the least, any conflict with state ideologies would be punished by the most extreme measures available. To Nicholas Kerensky, to preserve a society by making examples of folks who worked against the common good would be a worthy and necessary sacrifice to ensure the prosperity of his new system of order. After all, to him, it was a necessary price to pay for peace. His version of peace, at any rate. That's
oftentimes the problem, right? Where, like, the ideas behind Nikolai's... Like, Nikolai's ideas aren't bad. They're not. Like, the idea of, like, we're gonna make sure everyone unites together and, like, works together, etc. That's fine. The problem being, like, it being a warrior society kind of doesn't make sense if you want to be better than the inner sphere. Like, oh, we're gonna be better than the warriors of the inner sphere by being better at shooting. Okay? like, you know, like you're trying to build a better civilization, not a better army, you know?
New society required absolute obedience to a single way of life, and service to your clan and honor above any other consideration. Nicholas Kerensky had already demonstrated the value of his idealized society through his caste of chosen, proven warriors, for they had destroyed the warring factions of the Exodus Civil War. They had punished those responsible for leading it with swift and brutal justice. They had.
Something the Romans did, actually, and so did the Carthaginians, in fact, is whenever a tribe would raise up against them, what they would do is not actually punish the tribe, but punish the leaders, which is actually really clever to me because you still have the tribe, you still have the manpower, but if you rise up against us and you lead that rebellion, you're gonna be punished. Pretty dang clever, and it was effective as well.
Through their devotion to a greater and unifying cause established a lasting peace. But Nicholas Kerensky didn't stop there. He didn't see himself as an occupier in a strange land. He saw himself as a liberator of oppressed, backward-thinking people. He saw himself as an enlightened man with a mission to uplift and enlighten the downtrodden.
There's a lot there. Definitely some enlightened despotism, right? Very 19th century. Also some, like, weirdly, some colonialism almost, which is an interesting idea. Like, can you colonize your own culture? I think yes, because obviously in this case, the clans supplanted that SLDF and inner sphere culture. That's really interesting, actually.
Through his father's wisdom and his own vision, he would forge a new society, and so began a great period of cultural reorganization among the people of the Exodus. I must address the consideration that what information we have at this point comes courtesy of recently acquired, highly classified briefings made by Comstar during their extensive study of the clans. Comstar, being one of the few institutions that never forgot the wisdom in knowing your enemy, made every effort to understand the clan war machine.
Admittedly, good on Comstar. Like, Comstar is not perfect by any means, but that's clever.
The invasion of 49 through till the end of that conflict and beyond. One of the foremost minds spent studying their way of life in great detail was a man the clans had completely dismissed as a paper general, Anastasius Vogt. His insight into clanner culture comes from his first-hand experiences and thorough study into their way of life, their
interesting.
culture, their beliefs, and history. He dutifully compiled and studied everything he could get his hands on, from interviews with clanners to examples of their texts and art. From this, he distilled not only the foundational principles of their society, but in time, the necessary strategies to defeat them.
Very, very good. Generally, yeah, like know your enemy, right? You need to understand your enemy if you want to defeat them. And that's something that's very easy to dismiss. I feel like throughout history, whether it be the Romans all the way to, the British in the 19th century or any given like large empire, there's this sense of inherent superiority. Like the Romans had this a lot where they were like, oh, we are Romans, so therefore we are better. Like that sort of logic. And it's very easy to sometimes forget that your enemy is just as smart as you, if not smarter. And depending on where you're going, they might know the terrain better, they might know the people better, they might just be better at what you're gonna do. So yeah, always good to study up on your opponents before you begin.
So, drawing upon these files, let's briefly explore clanner society from their own accounts to better grasp the radical reforms of this early era.
Before we get into that really quickly, I just do wonder, I don't know if we're going to get anything about Anastasius in this. If we don't, I definitely need to read up on him at some point, because he seems interesting, and I do like a general that's smart.
Begin with the caste system, as implemented by Nicholas Kerensky. The clan caste system was instituted by Nicholas Kerensky as an attempt to impose order on the chaos of civilization. Yeah, his response to the puzzle of civilization, the endless cycles of war and destruction, was to put people into a Bronze Age caste system. This was justified in part by creatively interpreting the words and wisdom of his father, and melded with lessons cherry-picked from cultures Nicholas was seemingly fascinated by in ancient Terran history.
Yeah, tracks.
And despite the pressures any civilization endures with the slow march of time, the clan caste system is still very much alive. perhaps due to the belief that not adhering to the tenets passed on by Nicholas Kerensky would result in chaos, ruin, or the collapse of all they had built. Also, resisting such foundational beliefs in clan society was punished by the most extreme means available as unclan-like behavior. As discovered by Anastasius Vogt, the foundation of the caste system is immortalized in the Remembrance, a history in verse, passed down from one generation of clan lore master to the next. Much of clanner history is contained in the Remembrance.
I admit, I do like the idea of there being, like, dedicated historians in every clan, like, and to pass on information from generation to generation. That's kind of cool. I had my own version of this somewhat in my own setting, where what they would have is these tribes would basically... these tribes are all part of, like, roughly the same culture, but they are separate tribes, and they have this central place that they go to, and they leave one of their kind there to be tattooed with a single story, and that story is like their life. It is their focus. It is what they pass on. I wonder if there's like a similar sort of system in the clans.
Interpreted by a clan's lore master, which is a combination of historian and judicial administrator.
Oh.
Reading the Remembrance is a laborious process I would not recommend to anyone studying their history on a casual basis. As it stands, it is mostly poetic in composition and gives tremendous insight into the soul of a clanner. We find the organization of the clanner caste system outlined in passage 67, verse 26, lines 21 through 37 of the Remembrance, which will now be spoken by a clanner who has agreed to stop trying to kill me on condition I allow him to play a part in this lesson.
Okay, that's funny.
You're up, weirdo.
Oh my god.
5. Nicholas proclaimed was the foundation upon which our true society was to be built. Laborers to till the land, to do the tasks. They shall have our undying gratitude, for they are the muscle behind us all. Merchants to buy and sell with fairness. They shall have our commerce and respect, for they are the bones upon which we are built. Technicians to build and fix the machines. They shall have our admiration, for they are the fingers with which we grasp life. Scientists to create and discover. They shall have our awe and our attention, for they are the mind of our society. And above all, the warriors who protect. They shall have our cooperation and worship, for they are the blood and soul of us all.
That I find really interesting. First of all, he sells it really well. But that part, the fact that it's a warrior society is just fascinating to me because, like, why? What did Nikolai really want to accomplish here? Because I thought, at least, the previous video, there was definitely this idea of, like, we're gonna be better and we're gonna come back peaceful and be peaceful. The clans are many things, but peaceful is not one of them.
Well, that was fun. You may sit down. I believe that clanners chose to commit much of their history to such a form as the Remembrance, as they are a ritualized society that worships a legacy passed down in a quasi-spiritual fashion in much the same way many ancient Terran cultures handled the telling and retelling of their histories, folklore, and great deeds. At the core of the Remembrance is a history grounded as much in mythology as it is in real events and people.
So something very cool, by the way. In recent years, we have started understanding a lot of African histories a lot better, because a lot of those histories are oral history and passed down generation to generation. And for a very long time, archaeologists and anthropologists and those kind of folks didn't really bother figuring that out. For a very long time, there was this sort of idea that, oh, Africa's just like a continent that's blank and that doesn't have any culture or anything like that, which is obviously not true for obvious reasons. But I think it's kind of interesting seeing, like, archaeology kind of catch up to that idea of, like, hold on, you can tell stories in a different way that don't have to be written down. Let's investigate this and then, like, see which parts of this are true and or not. Because obviously, as with any oral retelling of a story, there's going to be embellishments, there's going to be changes, and there's going to be a morphing over the generations. But that doesn't mean there's not, like, something valuable in there.
As a living history with a unique bias, it holds the lesson that their very existence as a civilization is owed to the messianic figures of Alexander and Nicholas Kerensky, who, in their nobility and wisdom, sought to leave a barbaric and cruel world behind, leading a chosen people to this new Eden among the stars. Yeah. It teaches further that the Inner Sphere was once a bountiful paradise despoiled by the barbarians of the great houses, ruled by warlords and despots, and corrupted by the love of power. And I must admit, in truth, some of those points I actually do agree with.
I mean, yeah, fair is fair. That's kind of true.
But a police state's history is always going to be creative with the notion of assigning blame and further creating heroes. From the Comstar study, we can find that clan society has 5 recognized castes, and one very real, but unrecognized one. The warrior...
But I'm wondering, by the way, this city design, I assume this isn't, like, literally how it's done, because I feel like this would be a really impractical way of housing people. Then again, it's the clans, so, you know.
Caste and its people most of us are well acquainted with, either by proxy or hard-earned first-hand experience. Their work speaks for itself, and by design they are the de facto inheritors and protectors of Kerensky's legacy, and to underestimate them has been the doom of many. They are from those men and women of the SLDF who took part in the Exodus. And then the second, they are bred and trained exclusively for the various conflicts clanner society demands of them. They are pitted against one another from birth to death in a constant set of trials and challenges to not only attain positions of responsibility, but to keep them.
I do always wonder how effective something like that would be. Imagine this for a second, right? You're a general. You're trying to do your job, and there's constantly like 5 other guys on your back trying to take your job. I feel like that would affect your judgment, you know? Maybe that will come up later, but yeah, like, it doesn't seem like a very efficient system, if I'm honest.
Battlefield, they are equal to any fighting force currently available to the Inner Sphere, and fully capable of fighting many times their number without even the slightest thought of self-preservation. As this is a civilization built from the warrior elite, it is no wonder that the warrior caste is in charge of the day-to-day affairs of clan governance. All castes directly support, and in essence, owe fealty directly to the warrior caste. It is of note that all clan leadership is of the warrior caste, and only blood-named warriors may be elected Khan of the clan.
I do wonder what would happen, and maybe this happened at some point, if one of the other castes took control of a given clan. Like, I don't know, X clan is like more scientisty and becomes ruled by the science quarter, by the science caste. That would be interesting. I'll have to look up if that ever happened. I assume it did, because it seems like one of those things, you know, I'm literally just hearing about this and I'm instantly thinking, hey, what would happen if X? I feel like writers would be like, oh yeah, that would be really interesting. Let's talk about that.
Even directly participate in clan council. Okay, so what can I say about blood names? Well, how's this for a slice of strange? Clanners don't really have last names, at least from birth. Clanners don't get last names until they earn them.
Okay.
If they're lucky, that is. But in truth, it's not just a name, it's legacy in surname attached to a warrior that has proven themselves on the field of combat in a fiercely competitive trial for precisely that purpose.
Okay, yeah, so sort of the Roman logic of you need to earn your legacy. That's not a bad one in of itself.
Earn a surname is to inherit the legacy of that name. Assuming the mantle of a blood name means that your new name is therefore attached to all of the lofty deeds historically associated with it, whether that name be Kerensky or Pride, so on. All clanner warriors aspire to the lofty heights of honor that comes with earning a blood name, or they intend to die trying. With a blood name comes great power and honor and glory. It is the means by which their legacy will be chosen to live forever in the memory of their clan's history.
That does make sense. I imagine an Ilkhan with the name Kerensky would basically have, like, you know, they'd basically be worshipped by all the clans, at least to some extent.
Earn this singular honor of honors is the crowning achievement of a warrior's life. The warrior caste is at heart a competitive group continually testing themselves against each other until their time comes to die with honor, and the right to a last name attached to the honored dead is just one more contest they aim to win. And as
honestly, it makes sense to me.
far as blood names go, I'm not even going to deep dive on their meaning and importance beyond what I've already said, as I'm not even sure I understand it, other than surnames are for people who are extra good at fighting for honor, whatever that means. I just think blood names is the sticky little stars your teacher puts next to your name when you remember not to eat your homework, unless you're a Capellan, in which case schools are places you go to learn things that probably aren't propaganda. I'm joking.
Okay, first of all, hilarious. Second of all, the idea that they're just little stars is actually kind of fitting. But I do think that Roman comparison is very fitting, apt here, from what I understand. For those who don't know, Rome had this idea that you were a part of your family, but you yourself, as a person, needed to prove yourself to be worthy of that legacy. And it's not the same, obviously, because blood names are assigned after you prove yourself, but the vibe is kind of similar.
Joking, of course. Capellans don't have schools. Oh, man. Anyways, the warrior caste says a lot about a clan, and accordingly, each clan views the warrior caste slightly differently. Some clans' warrior castes see themselves as a first among equals, leading their people in noble pursuit of bettering the clan as a whole, and through it enriching their own lives. Some warrior castes see themselves as rulers in the medieval sense, passing down draconic punishment and frequently mistreating lower, lesser castes with casual disdain. It is worth noting that there are not a lot of warrior caste clanners, as they require a hell of a lot of training and enormous material and logistical support. Also, the frequent trials, challenges, and training with live ammunition result in a survival rate well below the other castes.
Yeah, that makes sense. I imagine it can absolutely ravage a clan if you go a little bit overboard with that sort of thing. Like, imagine a clan goes a little bit overboard and another clan says like, oh, you just killed like a bunch of your own warriors. Interesting.
Now, this may be a matter of opinion, but the limited number of the warrior caste, that is those who are allowed to bear arms, instructed in their use, and capable of using them in any functional military capacity, is one of the key reasons, at least so far as I feel, that the clan invasion of 3049 failed as it did. By the middle of
Yeah, I mean, the Inner Sphere just had more people, right? Fundamentally, even if they had won for a long time, and even if they had won at the Battle of Tukayed or whatever, eventually the Inner Sphere probably would have gotten together something new again, I imagine.
the 31st century, there were only 115 to 120,000 clan warriors across all known clans, and only select few clans were allowed the honor to participate in the invasion itself. In fact, in preparing for the invasion, the clans believed that any more than 5 clans would be complete overkill for the task of bringing the Inner Sphere to its knees. This, ladies and gentlemen, is called fucking hubris. Comparatively, in the same time...
This is what I was talking about earlier with the whole, like, know your enemy thing, and also, like, the idea of the inherent superiority. When the Romans marched into Teutoburg Forest, they didn't think they were gonna lose, but they were absolutely crushed.
Period. The Lyran Commonwealth Armed Forces alone had 15 million men and women in active service, and its largely incompetent general staff was more than willing to throw people into a slaughter, as they had done for 4 succession wars up to that point. It is no small statement to make that any invasion with that disparity in numbers, while obeying a strict code of conduct and military tradition which hugely limits the use of force, strategic implementation of vast arsenals, and with direct prohibitions against using overwhelming advantages on pain of honor, would be an exceptionally stupid endeavor, which would be obvious to anyone who knew math.
Yep, but I think here is where the clans start to fail.
But I suppose that's just the opinion of an asshole. Back to the main point. The wild and wonderful caste system. The scientist caste is something of an interesting subject, as it is where I feel the true strength of the clan lays. For where the Inosphere was busy nuking each other into the Stone Age, and then continuing the fight with Rock's pride from the irradiated rubble like a bunch of stoned apes, the scientist caste of the clans pushed ahead and built up the substantial technical and engineering knowledge inherited from the remnants of the SLDF. They took what was already the best equipment and technology humanity ever made, and they improved on it. And
the crazy thing is, not just improved upon it, but when you look at it, this is kind of what happens when, you know, humanity isn't held back artificially by infighting and Comstar doing its shenanigans. Like theoretically, if the Inospheres hadn't been busy nuking each other constantly, they could have had similar technology to the clanners, maybe even better, because, you know, larger industrial bases, more scientists, blah, blah, blah.
Conceivable way. From advanced eugenics programs to terrifying weapons programs, the scientist caste is solely responsible for the exodus, resulting in a net gain in technological base, instead of regressing as the Inner Sphere did. Whereas the Inner Sphere fought over scraps of functional Star League equipment, the clan technical expertise improved it and made incredible technological advancements to their warfighting capabilities. The phenomenally gifted scientists of the scientist caste have not only built new warriors, but many new and exciting weapons for them to use. From Omnimechs to power armor to advanced life support systems, the scientist caste is, I feel, the true powerhouse of their civilization.
I want to point out as well, like the Omnimechs and everything are awesome, but the really fundamental power there is in stuff like the life support systems. Making those smaller and more effective just means like you're gonna have more endurance in the field, which is rather important when you're actually fighting. Then again, the clans don't really care about long engagements, but you get me.
With relatively few restrictions placed upon their scientific undertakings, clanner scientists are directly responsible for the tremendous pace of technological development in clanner society. Aside from that, there's the technician caste who maintain the fleet and equipment of the clans. Fleets, I must point out, are still largely in one piece, as they didn't waste them in wars over virtually nothing. There's also a merchant caste, which oversees the needs of clan financial interests, acquisitions, and trade.
Honestly, I feel like playing a merchant clanner could be really interesting. Like, I bet in a role-playing game, dealing with a merchant clanner is much more pleasant than a warrior clanner.
And a lowly laborer caste that handles virtually everything else. The survivors of the Exodus Civil War took to the caste system, being pleased enough to have safety, security, and peace after so very long. After all, it was a system of order that seemingly worked, as everything up to this point had resulted in endless cycles of destruction. But some took to being assigned a fixed place in society as an insult.
Yeah?
Being told that you're born to do a job, and only that job, with very little prospect of rising beyond it, no matter how you apply yourself, can make someone a bit bitter. And that's where we get into the caste that clanners don't want to admit actually exists. Even in an ordered society, there are people who refuse to fit in. And this brings us to the dark caste, or bandit caste.
Or the pariahs, effectively. This is something that happens in real life as well, where, like, you don't fit into a caste, and thus you don't fit into society.
Officially, the bandit caste does not exist. In truth, however, this is the caste that is where all those who do not fit into clanner society end up. This is a population beyond the control, or at least the authority of the clans, those nomads and fringe society folks who really are no different than the bulk of those inhabiting the deep periphery. Resistant to organized government, society, and the laws that govern them, the bandit caste has no aim other than to have no aim. The bandit caste are those who refuse to live in clanner society or have nowhere else to go. They reave and raid to support their own interests, and that's nearly all that's known about them.
Honestly, playing one of those folks, or even a group of those folks in a TTRPG could be really interesting as well. Like, you've never fit into clan society, so you set out on your own, in the somewhere in the deep periphery. You might understand higher technology a little bit better, but good luck applying it in the deep periphery. That could make for a really interesting, like, kind of, a Firefly-esque story. A little dropship flying around the place, doing missions, trying to not die. Kind of a fun idea.
Occasionally, the bandit or dark caste will raid clanner bases for supplies, from water to ammunition. They will take what they can before fading away.
Yeah.
Only a few clans have managed to deal with this caste in any meaningful manner, as controlling professional outlaws is a difficult proposition. Some would note that the only reason a dark caste exists within a warrior society at all is the simple need to give clan warriors target practice. But considering they still exist, I posit this. The dark caste is a release valve for clanner culture, a place to put people who do not belong, but cannot be conveniently made to disappear or suppressed by any other efficient means. But, fatefully perhaps, Nicholas Kerensky's dabbling attempts at bettering humanity did not stop with what it stood for.
The dark caste is a really interesting one to me, and I kind of want to read up more on them if there is anything to find. Because, yeah, the idea of, like, I always find, personally, like, you can have a society, and that society itself might be really interesting, right? Like, you have, like, the Romans, for example. I keep going back to the Romans, but, like, you know, since I'm going back to them anyway, you have the Romans. Very, very simple. They are all about Roman citizenship and all that stuff. The people that don't fit into that society but still have to live under it, those are the really interesting ones to me, because those are the people who the system forgets. Those are the people who have to make do without the system. And then it suddenly, yeah, like it changes the word I'm looking for. It changes the dynamic of a person's life to a massive degree.
It did not stop with instilling virtues and honor through clever interpretations of his father's work. It did not stop with ordering society into castes and forcing people to adopt a certain mindset or be punished, chastised, eliminated, or cast out. For Nicholas not only wanted a better society, but better people. And rather than wait for nature to take its course, or his civilization to naturally make a better class of person as it was designed to do, he decided to use science to speed things up. It was a breakthrough back in 2016 that began the path to a better clanner. The iron womb was originally a technology principally used to keep premature babies alive, but it was soon pressed into service to rapidly mass-produce human beings from tailored genetics.
Yeah, eugenics. See, I have mixed feelings on this, because on the one hand, I'm a transhumanist. I think humanity will eventually have to, like, you know, use cybernetics or perhaps nanomachines or some kind of technology to, like, upgrade itself And there's definitely discussion to be had, like, what is a human, blah, 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 all that kind of stuff. This is still kind of like, it's kind of iffy,
As widespread adoption of the eugenics programs had been a taboo subject in the inner sphere, to Nicholas, it was a necessary step to develop the culture he so desperately wanted, as quickly as he wanted it. After early successes were demonstrated, widespread use of the Iron Womb was implemented in 2819 to rapidly breed newer generations of warriors, free of unwanted defects or shortcomings. Nicholas Kerensky would get his new warriors by factory process, churned out and made to order. By Nicholas Kerensky's own wishes, he could design a brave new world with the very best people science could provide.
And that's also A Brave New World, the book, actually goes into that. In A Brave New World, the book, there are also different caste systems, and they basically have, like, I think it's like they use different amounts of alcohol to affect them to different levels. And like the highest, so everybody's happy in this society, but it's also fundamentally a manufactured happiness. It kind of goes into that, and it's very interesting because it's a pleasant place to live, but it's also a stagnant place to live. Tailored humanity.
Over time, tailored genetics would result in a significant gulf between a clan warrior and the rest of humanity. Now, I will say that some in the clans, at least initially, had concerns over the moral or ethical or even social implications stemming from such technology being used to breed essentially what were superior human beings genetically engineered for specific purposes. However, when these concerns were raised to Nicholas Kerensky, he silenced them, as was rapidly becoming his custom. Any clashes with his vision of a new utopia were seen as unclan-like behavior.
This is often the problem of these kind of technologies, because I personally am not opposed to the idea of, like, let's say we could make it so the next generation just can't get cancer, right? You just give them some kind of genetic thing so they just cannot get cancer. That's a good thing. That's generally, like, a positive. The problem being that, what kind of side effects does it have? What, like how far can we go with that? At what point is it, like, there is a point where you start looking into, okay, you need to ensure diversity still exists as well. There are certainly some things that you can say 100% improvements, like I said, being unable to get cancer. That's an improvement, 100%. But on the other hand, there's more considerations there. It's a very deep conversation, and it's like 9 a.m., so sorry if I'm not, like, being as eloquent about this as you might want, but I haven't had my coffee yet.
And summarily dealt with. Maybe it was the skewed perception that stemmed from his earlier cognitive illness, or not knowing when to leave well enough alone. But this was the course he had decided was necessary to preserve his vision of the future. What he wanted was better warriors. He didn't care how, and he didn't mind crossing ethical boundaries to make it happen. After all, by his own logic, accepting the limitations of the past was to inherit the limited thinking of the old inner sphere. And by his own interpretation, that was unclan-like thinking. Those born of this technology would soon become the new warrior elite, with aptitude for combat written directly into their genetic code. These products of eugenics became known as the Trueborn, engineered to be better in every possible way for the task at hand. And that task was glorious, honorable combat. The warrior caste of today is...
Good lord. Sorry, Jesus. Sorry, just the art kind of jump scared me there. My god, that's not a man, that's a brick. That's like that meme, you're not Batman, you're Bat Brick. Is that an axe?
overwhelmingly trueborn. though it is notable that some freeborn have managed to actually land places of influence within the warrior caste by being either supremely talented or just batshit crazy. To their credit, and I say this in all fairness, clan society doesn't officially prevent a freeborn, that is, someone born the old-fashioned way, from rising in the ranks. It is in many ways a very real meritocracy that justly rewards brilliance, audacity, and getting things done through enormous personal sacrifice, so long as the cultural rules are obeyed at every step. Though this is not always the case.
Right.
Prejudice of the trueborn toward those born the old-fashioned way, and their presumed arrogance and belief of total supremacy has resulted in many promising leaders being relegated to lower castes or made to disappear for daring to challenge the established order of things.
Here's more of the problem with the whole Genix thing here, right? Like, yeah, like theoretically you can rise up through the ranks, but let's be honest here, that's not gonna happen. Not often.
The warrior caste tends to look down on freeborns as they are born imperfect. This prejudice still exists, despite the fact their founders were freeborn. Initially, there was only one model of clan or trueborn, but with time, scientific breakthroughs allowed for further enhancements to be made, and accordingly, the eugenics program rapidly evolved. There are three main clan phenotypes known to the inner sphere at this time. Firstly, there are the elementals. Engineered to be 2 to 2.5 meters high, they are bred for strength and endurance for the purposes of being the very best battle-armored shock troops science can provide. They are near fearless walking slabs of muscle, raised and trained to fight above and beyond the capacities of any naturally born human being, raised from childhood to be assault infantry without equal. Elementals are more often than not incredibly aggressive, focused warriors.
I do really like elementals on a lot of levels, I have to admit. I'm a big fan of like battle armor in Battletech, so I do kind of like them, I have to admit.
Mental training prepares them for the brutal rigors of combat and a variety of combat situations, and they are taught that by their combined strength, anything is possible. Extensively trained to operate alongside mechs or by themselves, elementals can ride into combat dangling from a clan mech and then leap into combat to seriously complicate the situation for any opposition. Clad in advanced power armor, equipped with jump jets, and carrying enough firepower to decimate a platoon in minutes, elementals are the penultimate evolution of rapid mobility infantry doctrine, fully capable of fighting in any fathomable theater of war. From the vacuum of space to high-G worlds, elementals are a clanner solution to practically anything requiring infantry. The inner sphere knows little about them, other than their sheer determination to jump onto any mech with mad glee and proceed to tear the pilot out of it. Packs of elementals can and will tear a mech to pieces with relative ease. These ultimate warriors are a mech pilot's worst nightmare.
They are, and I think that's one of the very interesting things, like, in a lot of the games, when you have an assault mech, right, like, think like a king crab. Now, king crab is freaking terrifying. Even just the AC-20 variant, not even thinking about the Gauss rifle variant. That one's already really powerful and terrifying. But a group of elementals can absolutely rip that thing apart if they get close enough. And that's kind of interesting, and it's something that I feel like a lot of the games kind of don't have. Like, Battletech, HBS's Battletech is very much just like, drop 4 assault mechs and you win. So, sort of, obviously talking about vanilla. And then, Mechwarrior 5 is somewhat the same, although there are some variations there. I think it's kind of the limitation of having only mechs to fight. Well, okay. And vehicles and turrets, but you get me.
A nightmare squared, as they have absolutely no fear of your equipment and absolute faith in theirs. Those who underestimate their abilities fill the graveyards of many worlds. Terrifyingly enough, Inner Sphere mech warriors have found elemental power armor to be fully capable of taking enormous damage. Reports from the front of the clan invasion mention elemental power armor taking multiple hits from mech-scale weapons. The sheer resilience in the face of overwhelming odds and the terror tactics elementals often employ led many inner sphere mech pilots to initially think they were fighting aliens. But
one of the things I find really cool about elementals, at one point, I think, I don't remember when it happens, but I remember reading at one point, an elemental took a PPC, like, straight on, and was fine. Which is like, what? Like, obviously, I mean, he was still messed up. He still got, like, thrown back and blah, 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 all that stuff. But he was alive, which is a lot more than you can say for any other given infantry.
if we're going to compare clanners to aliens, I have to bring these things up. These are clanner aerospace pilots. Clanner elementals are one thing. They're just big, strong turbo infantry and expensive dates to boot. Their purpose on the battlefield is a clear evolution.
Snoozing at your own peril. True. I mean, my community has a lot of muscle mommy enjoyers. Fair is fair, so...
Of infantry doctrine. The hardships of infantry combat require the engineering of a better soldier. That makes sense. But clanner aerospace pilots are something else. Averaging 1.7 meters tall and 50 kilos heavy at most, with distinctly enlarged craniums and eyes for enhanced perception, clanner aerospace pilots are optimized for spaceflight. Or they got stuck on the way out of the jar. Sorry, couldn't resist.
These guys are like belters, to an extent, I imagine.
Diminutive aerospace forms are designed for withstanding intense G in aerospace combat, and presumably take up less room in generally cramped starship conditions. Insofar as I know, they don't do very well outside of space combat, and arguably their overall impact on the history of interstellar combat is minimal. That could be either from clanner doctrine not making the most of widespread aerospace forces as they'd rather good on the ground and go toe-to-toe in the squared circle, or that inner sphere aerospace pilots are some of the craziest fucking people in the galaxy and will gladly test their skills against anyone, at any time, in any place, for ownership of the sky. And that's something that Tira Miraborg demonstrated when she single-handedly killed Ilkhan Leo Showers during the clan invasion through a thing called a kamikaze attack. Clanners were so impressed by this act of heroic sacrifice, they gave her her own lines in the remembrance. Take from
Wow, an inner sphere person getting that.
That as you will. Lastly, there's the most common clanner warrior phenotype, the Mechwarrior. These guys and gals may look normal, but with massively superior reflexes and a brain chemistry altered to better interface with neurohelmets, far better than their inner sphere counterparts anyways. They're second to none on the battlefield. Well, when their leaders don't lead them into the inner sphere while bidding away every single material advantage they have to ensure an honorable victory. But regardless of their phenotype, Trueborn are a class apart, taught at a young age that they're the true inheritors and protectors of Kerensky's legacy, raised in social groups designed to challenge and shape them into the ultimate self-sufficient and loyal warriors, and then put through a training program engineered to weed out the weak, reward the strong, and to obey a ritualized honor system. Only
Sorry, this art is just getting to me. Just this absolute slap. My guy looks like a space marine. I'm sorry. I think it's the grenades that are doing it for me. Like, the fact that they're so tiny compared to the rest of him is just really funny to me.
the very best even live to make it to the battlefield. Bred to be better warriors in every possible way, trained extensively on every piece of equipment they could conceivably use, and tested endlessly against each other in ritualized combat, the clanner warrior caste is one of the most terrifyingly effective fighting forces in the history of humanity. It is no small wonder that they forged such a fearsome reputation on the battlefield. as failure for a trueborn, failure to live up to expectations, to rise to the top, to live to the requirements of whatever mission put before them, means they are potentially stripped of power, authority, and honor, or worse, cast down into mere civilian life, and then generally looked upon with contempt, derision, and scorn for the rest of their days spent doing thankless work. I wanted to bring up Trueborn for this reason, and this reason alone, before resuming the history lesson.
Okay.
Brave New World to Nicholas Kerensky was not something shaped by the resources he had on hand. This new world that he fashioned from history, from his father's musings, and from his own damaged mind, would not be inherited by the sons and daughters of the old. Radically changing how people thought and lived was insufficient to the task of forging this new society. Bringing people to embrace his father's wisdom as interpreted by his own creative hand was not enough. Casting away the ways of the old inner sphere was not enough. He was not content to merely change what was in a man's heart, but the man himself. Nicholas Kerensky's future required a better human being, and rather than wait for his civilization to produce them in line with his utopian vision, he used science to whip one up. Soon after coming
Like, I have mixed feelings about this. I really do. Because on the one hand, like, the goal itself is like fair. It's the way we get there that's the problem, you know? Like, I also think, like, a warrior society is not the way to go for a utopian society. If we are gonna try to make a utopia, which, you know.
of age, the first generation of Trueborn took their place in society, and humans made the old-fashioned way would begin to be looked on with scorn as second-class citizens at best. Genetics were an unnecessary lottery to General Nicholas Kerensky's thinking. They were a wild card, a gamble. As for every great man, for every great leader a society can make, there will be a million who would rise to simple mediocrity before being forgotten. And so this new society would be shaped primarily by those born to be exceptional, trained to be the best society could offer, and only after extensive competition, led by the finest among them. As for those born of natural means, free birth is what they would come to call them, and it is the primary insult that Clanner uses on citizens of the inner sphere.
Honestly, what the heck? Like, again, I've said it a few times now, but I really have a lot of mixed feelings about this. Because, again, on the one hand, you know, the idea of, hey, we can genetically remove cancer from all of humanity. That would be awesome, you know, like, that would be great. Problem often being, can you actually apply it to all of humanity? Can you, like, actually make it equal? Can you make it available? Can you make it, like, fair for everyone, etc.? Yeah, there's a lot of ethical stuff in there that obviously Nikolai was like, you know, whatever.
But a society just isn't the people. For a civilization must have an ideology. Honor was a critical sticking point and foundational belief for the nascent clan civilization.
Mm-hmm.
From creative, if not poetic interpretations from his father's writings, and his own extensive imaginative input, Nicholas Kerensky would build a warrior society governed principally by ritualized systems of honor. But that's not to say their society doesn't have its own quirks that would, in time, result in a radical divergence from the distant inner sphere relations.
Also, something I find very interesting, and this happens a few times in Battletech, because Comstar does this as well, is that sort of ritualistic part, the religious part. That's how you manage to keep your society going generation to generation. I think that's very interesting.
In a society with limited resources, strongly influenced from the hard, early days of survival on marginally habitable worlds devastated by near 20 years of reckless warfare, Clanner's society is notably engineered toward efficiency and does not allow for idleness, disruption, or chaos. They also recycle damn near everything and see waste as unclan-like. Yeah.
I mean, honestly, good on them for recycling everything.
Recycling is not optional.
Daddy
You can't just will an ordered society into being. And naturally, clanners use a variety of controls to force people into accepting and adopting practices that benefit their caste and clan. From strict observations regarding work ethic, interpersonal communications, and conduct on and off the battlefield, clanners rarely stray from the mold they're placed in. And admirably enough, it seems to work. Peace would be maintained through superior firepower, tempered by a warrior caste that I will admit.
There was a flash of something then.
Be maintained through superior firepower.
See. Ooh, flashed again. I know you can do frame by frame, but for some reason that doesn't always work for me. Try it though. Ah, it's working this time. That was Clan Scorpion, wasn't it?
Tempered by
that
a
was Clan
warrior
Scorpion.
caste that I will admit have noble intent, and that they are unwilling to fight a war on the sheer reckless scale the Inner Sphere was historically known for. To a clanner, war was for a purpose. You fought your enemy to gain new technology, new land, people, resources, or honor. War was never to annihilate your enemy unless absolutely necessary. War was never ever to inflict significant damage to worlds if you could help it. Conflict was a strictly regulated contest between warriors and governed by a code of strict conduct to ensure, above all, when the smoke cleared, civilization endured.
Admittedly, that is something that I do kind of like about the clan. Because say what you will about the clans and the Inner Sphere, and how, like, there's a lot of bad there. Inner Sphere was busy nuking each other this entire time. Meanwhile, the clans, they were prospering. For better or for worse, you know? Like, fair is fair.
In theory, these rules and guidelines ensured that society was tempered into never again repeating the violent mistakes of the past. That's not to say there was ever peace in this strange warrior utopia. For in clanner society, there was always a conflict, but it was always small scale, controlled and highly focused conflict governed by agreed upon terms and served as an outlet for many long-standing feuds that might go otherwise unanswered. With ritualized rules to guide them, the warlike nature of the clans was governed by the understanding that they would endeavor to never again resort to the barbarism of the Inner Sphere. And again, I have to give them kudos for that. It is, after all, a far better job of things than we did in learning from near annihilation. The Inner Sphere went through 4 succession wars to determine that nukes are probably not so great when everyone uses them at the drop of a hat.
And fair is fair. Like, good on them.
That technology is hard to replace when you kill everyone who knows how math works. Through Nicholas's orders.
Heck, honestly, there's even a whole thing about if you destroy a factory, then you need to reset up that whole production line, retooling, like, doing all of those things. Even if you have people that know how to, that's a lot of money and investment and time that you lose from having to restart a production line. It's part of why some designs from like the 80s or the 90s that might still be really good now, but those factories have been shut down and you know, are gone now, why they aren't used anymore today, because, well, it's frankly easier and better to just develop something new and go with that.
Clan society did away with many structures of the Inner Sphere, and what it borrowed or interpreted was modified to suit the needs of the clans. But there were some parts of their distant cultural ties to the Inner Sphere they couldn't part with. One of those things being language. whereas the inner sphere speaks a
boy.
wide variety of tongues. From the German spoken in the Lyran Commonwealth as an adopted state language to the bizarre mixture of Swedish and Japanese spoken in the Free Rasselhag Republic.
Heck yeah, Rasslag.
The clanners, however, still speak the mother tongue of the SLDF, Star League English, and this language to them is sacred. It is an artifact of an age of heroes and their mighty deeds. It is the high and noble language of Kerensky, of their founders, of the wise and noble messianic figures who guided them to this place and gave them everything they have. It is
In a way, it's kind of like the Roman equivalent. I keep going back to Rome, but like it just feels fitting here. Like the whole Latin thing. Latin used for mostly science in our case, but still. There's that sense of Latin being sort of special language, right?
is a cultural tether that bonds them not only with their past and their founders, but the distant age of the Star League itself. Clanner language is treated with the reverence of a holy text, and speaking it poorly will result in sometimes tragic consequences. In fact, it's worth noting that they hold such respect for the language that they consider the use of contractions to be extremely ill-mannered and dangerously unclan-like.
Oh, that's interesting. Oh, so me saying that's interesting would already be a problem. That is interesting. Would be the proper way to say it in clan terms. Interesting. Okay.
Their language is a critical bridge to the distant past, to the time of the founders, and keeping it alive in a sense bonds them with the great deeds of Kerensky. The language has, though, subtly mutated out there in clan space, but with their strict cultural controls and sheer distance from any other cultural influences, the language is more or less the same as it was in the late 28th century. But I will say that there are words created in the deep periphery that have no translation to what I'm speaking now.
Really quickly, I do want to mention that there's some very interesting things with that. Iceland, for example, still speaks a sort of form of Old Nordic. Like, Icelandic is very similar to Old Nordic because of them being isolated for a very long time and having very few other cultural influences. Meanwhile, something like English is a hodgepodge of 100 different languages. A lot of our modern English comes from French, for example, from the Norman invasion. And also, there's quite a few Scandinavian words in there. Germanic, a lot of loan words from any given country they colonized, etc. Interesting.
There is a small taste.
In case it's not obvious, I find language very interesting. I did consider studying etymology at one point. Okay, I really like this style. That's fun.
Into the battle with the clans, and while you're out there on the battlefield dodging bullets and their horrible battle tactics, you might also hear some weird language. Here is a quick list of some of the terms you might hear on the battlefield. Affirmative. Negative. Batchall. Battle challenge. It's when
Your what?
the clan actually get together and challenge each other to battle. Blood name. It refers to the blood name or surname of a certain clan. If you have a blood name, it means that you're much more important, supposedly. Bondsman. A prisoner taken during combat. Shawlcast. Someone or something that is outside of acceptable clan culture or challenges it.
Right?
The Founder. How do you say that one? Nicholas. Nicholas? Oh, okay. The name the clans use for Nicholas... I'm gonna get that. Fuck him.
Oh shit, I must have taped over it. Anyways, back to the lesson. And while language...
Okay, that's fun. I do like how they... I think a video like that instantly gets a lot of character, just from the fact that it's, you've got like a little VHS tape, you've got the graininess, and the audio isn't perfect, etc. I quite like that, honestly. There's an interesting thing where, going on a little bit of a tangent, there's an interesting thing where, like, humans like imperfection. Like, if you make a perfect animation, for example, it's gonna look really uncanny and weird. Humans tend to like it when there's, like, a little bit of grunginess or dirtiness to a given space or animation or video or something, Something to show those imperfections, I guess.
Is a mostly immutable construct for them. There are some things clanners couldn't help but take wholesale from the inner sphere, some things that were not cast away, mutilated, or changed significantly. For if no other reason than to foster competitive spirit and team building, the clanners play a variety of sports. I'm serious. And I'll be honest, their teams are pretty fucking great. Clan Wolf loves the lacrosse of all things, though they do play it in full battle armor. Steel
Okay, that's fun.
Viper and Star Adder both field impressive rugby teams, and Clan Ghost Bear plays an ancient Terran game called American football.
Oh, god dang it. You know what's funny about that? So, American football is literally, in real life, it is played pretty much only in America. Like, there are other places where it's played, but it's very limited in other countries. I think it's fascinating that... Not to say that it couldn't survive into space, right? It absolutely could. I just think it's fascinating how common it is in, like sci-fi. Probably because a lot of that sci-fi is written by Americans. Again, not a bad thing, just kind of interesting.
Their elementals do anyways. If any of their mech pilots are willing to play elementals in a game that encourages tackling, God fucking help them. While possessing no unifying religious belief system, there is a sort of spiritual belief common to the core tenets of clan culture. In clanner culture, the Kerenskys and great acts are synonymous with the core beliefs of the clans. It was they who led people away from the barbarism of the inner sphere and into this new utopia, a promised land made sacred by their hard work and sacrifice. Nicholas Kerensky is hailed as a messianic figure who rescued his people from their avarice, greed, and the darkness in their own hearts. From birth, clanners are taught a mythological form of their history, in that the inner sphere was once a beautiful paradise, wrecked by barbarians, and that the great houses are nothing but corrupt, neo-feudalistic states intent on destroying everything of value and each other.
I do find myself wondering how that translates once the clans like go into the inner sphere and establish themselves.
Any cost. Having fought for and against many of these neo-feudalistic states myself, I can tell you that their checks usually clear on time. And aside from Capellans, they're no better or worse than the rest of us. But that's merely the opinion of an old mercenary. Clanner culture is engineered to reinforce the idea that the descendants of the Exodus fleet are the true inheritors of Star League, and that the clan way of life exemplifies these values. Honesty, working for the common good, working for honorable purposes, and upholding the virtues of the Star League as a sort of idealized, perfect living utopia. These values are established to avoid repeating the excesses of their own history and the seemingly unending cycles of destruction inherent throughout human history as a whole. As such, they have turned war into a sport a challenge between parties, bargained and bartered with exceptionally strict terms of conduct. And I say war is a sport because that's as close as I can reckon it. To clanners, conflict must be as fair as possible. The clanner way of war is to ensure parity between opponents, with the greater forces bidding away their advantages, whatever they may be, to ensure the contest is as even as possible.
I find that really interesting because obviously it's not an efficient way to wage war, but it is an interesting way.
If you have warships and your opponent does not, you don't use them to absolutely wreck their planets. You bid them away and challenge them on fair terms for their territory. If you have assault mechs and your opponent mere infantry, you changed your lineup to ensure an honorable combat amongst equals. This would gain you honor, even if you lost. While this system is, to me, tragically stupid, as it eliminates the point in maintaining a technological or logistical advantage over your opponents, it does have its merits, if few. Throughout history, war has always been, in essence, a violent real estate business, with both sides trying to be the firstest with the mostest. War has historically been a contest between states to see who could put more warfighting capacity into a war zone, to have or develop an advantage in numbers and material, and then use that leverage to overcome the defenses of your enemy. Clanners determined that war was to take enemy real estate and keep it without inflicting catastrophic damage in the process, at least in theory. War to them was governed in a sense to prevent it from spilling over or escalating beyond the contest as established and agreed upon between the declared combatants. And while I would love to expound further on clanner society at this point, from the Bushido light that is Zelbriggan to the mysteries of the Honor Road to Batchels and how to claim your very own bondsman, I feel that perhaps this would be its own lecture series down the road.
Episode 708, Clan Home Recipes and Board Games. Honestly, I would love to see an episode about, like, food in Battletech. Maybe I should make that. Food in Battletech. I don't know, would you guys watch that? Would that be interesting to you guys? Because I'd be interested. Like, maybe I'll do like a short series talking about like different drinks from like the inner sphere and stuff like that, and like maybe some World of Darkness and SCP in there as well, and like other settings. That could be fun. That could be really fun, actually. Yeah, the more I think about it, the more I want to do that. Yeah, that sounds fun.
Let me know. The main point of my analysis here is that clanner society is one of rules, honor, and strict systems of control, engineered to produce a unified society focused entirely on propagating its belief system and overcoming any threat through precise applications of violence. It exists as a system of control to rein in the brutality inherent in civilization by regulating military forces and their use to ensure civilization endures even if the individual does not.
And fair is fair. Where the inner sphere is a hammer, these guys are more of a scalpel. And sure, clanners are perfectly capable of barbarity, just as much as the inner sphere. Absolutely. That being said, fair is fair. In most of the conflicts that they're a part of, as far as I'm aware, clanners tend to kill a lot less people. They'll kill, warriors. But generally, depending on the clan, obviously, there's less civilian casualties, and I do think that's a positive, at the very least.
Their society is built to ensure that the very best shall lead, and everyone else supports them. But even in systems of control, there always exists the potential for disaster.
Final death of the old guard. Oh boy.
In these early years, there was a measure of severe discontent among the more powerful clans. As a fiercely competitive culture geared toward handling issues principally through highly focused violent trials, discontent has, of course, every potential for very lethal consequences. Ilkhan Nicholas Kerensky had been most impressed by Clan Wolf during Operation Klondike and had decided to join them formally, after a trial, of course, because that's how they do practically everything. Clan Jade Falcon was pretty goddamn mad at this. Outwardly, they were of course honorable and subservient, but many within Jade Falcon felt that Jade Falcon alone deserved the great honor of Nicholas Kerensky's potential membership in their Cool Kids Club.
And that's why you don't make like a bunch of different clans. That's why, practically speaking, if I was Nicholas and I was gonna make like the clans, assuming everything else would be the same, which it wouldn't, but, you know, assuming, I would have just made a single clan. I would have just been like, okay, you get one clan, everybody's the same. Everybody's part of one clan, and we're all part of one society, and we're all going one direction. Not like, oh, we're a bunch of different clans, let's fight amongst each other. God dang it. God dang it, Nicholas.
While Jade Falcon leadership knew their place, the rank and file expressed greater and greater discontent at the seeming lack of wisdom displayed by Ilkhan Nicholas Kerensky. If he wasn't wise enough to join Clan Jade Falcon after all, what else was he unwise about? This came to a head in July of 2823. Ilkhan Kerensky was intent on visiting Clan Jade Falcon and their holdings on Eden. Discontent and rumblings among the rank and file were at an all-time high, and, well, with Kerensky on his way to see what was really going on. Hazen, as one of the few people in history to take a sword to a gunfight and win, acted as she did best. She found out who was unhappy, and she got rid of them. All of them.
Okay, interesting.
By the time Kerensky arrived, the ringleaders were executed and bodies put on public display to be picked apart by animals. Only a bare few escaped punishment this severe. What had once been an officer of the Black Watch was now the founding Khan of Clan Jade Falcon, and she would ensure none dared threaten order from within or without. And this would set a precedent for how a clan could deal with such internal problems of doubt. And this is just one example of the problems the new clans faced. For while clan...
Yeah, like, in general, you're always going to have a little bit of dissent, and it is very in character for them to crash it down like this. God dang it. Sorry. I just find it very typical of the factions in Battletech that the solution to dissent isn't, oh, let's listen to them and see what we can do. No, it's just crush them underfoot, sometimes quite literally.
Jade Falcon had suffered a few dissatisfied warriors grumbling about political power and honor and all that nonsense. There was a whole clan upset at how things were unfolding. I'm going to have to tell you about the final death of the old guard. Those who remembered the time before Nicholas Kerensky and his brave new world, and who, in their audacity, dared to oppose him. This is, at least in brief, the story of Clan Wolverine. In the end, it was a truly magnificent tragedy.
From what I know of Clan Wolverine, they're kind of like the forgotten Primarchs in 40k. This is gonna get interesting.
But I feel this story is important to the early years of the clans, and I need to cover this in some detail. I have to say at this juncture there exists the very real and difficult issue of trying to confirm these events. As with the outcome of this whole endeavor, it was obvious that this story is something the clanners wanted to erase from historical record. While they tried their best in that endeavor, records do still exist, and from those piecemeal records I can say that not all was well in the early years of the clanner civilization. There's a hell of a lot to say about Clan Wolverine, and I fully intend to tell their story on its own in the future. But I hope this brief version of events covers enough for our purposes, here and now. The head of Clan Wolverine was Sarah McEvedy, daughter of the legendary SLDF General James McEvedy, who was in turn the last commanding officer of the 331st Royal Battle Mech Division. Sarah was an accomplished command-level officer, firm believer in the foundational morals and principles of the Star League, but also, and perhaps most contentiously, a free thinker. And being a free thinker in clan society was a dangerous occupation. She reasoned that in the same way Nicholas Kerensky led Clan Wolf and by Ilkhan provided leadership and guidance to the clans as a whole, she should be free to determine the course her own clan would take.
I mean, it makes sense, right? It really does, but oh boy.
This was a mistake. Whereas Nicholas Kerensky had opted to instill the virtues of honor and glory through Zellbriggen, preferring to challenge opponents in single combat, Sarah McEvedy dared to use Star League tactics to include combined operations warfare. She saw no good goddamn reason to tie her hands in the affairs of war, that honor was just a word to be used by people who'd never held a fucking gun, and her rulership of her own clan reflected just that.
I admit that I do kind of get it, right? Especially if you're used to those sort of tactics. Why would you throw away your advantage to not just crush your enemy? Like, yeah, I get it.
Her leadership was seen as dangerous and subversive, as she exercised thinking for herself rather than emulating the so-called wisdom of Nicholas Kerensky.
Sorry, I know that's not what this is about, but the idea of like, woman thinking, die! It's very funny. I know it's not because she's a woman. I know there's not like a problem there. I know it's because subverting pan society. I just think it's funny.
She found herself at odds with clan systems of belief on more than one occasion. For instance, she allowed her people to migrate between castes, as she believed and found that folks were more productive and dare say more fulfilled when they could shape their own destinies through hard work and fulfilled ambitions.
Gasp! People liking being able to do the thing they like? Revolutionary!
She found that people who were talented enough and tried hard enough to better themselves could in fact better the clan as a whole through their hard work and dedication. This went against Nicholas's vision, and accordingly, she was called to task. Her reforms or interpretations of the clan system was something dangerous not only as it went against the wants of Nicholas Kerensky, but in that it was actually successful. By shifting the castes around and enacting reforms aimed to fix the system from within, she managed to not only increase food output and economic output, she managed to even push the scientist caste to develop technological marvels beyond what other clans had been able to achieve up to that point. Soon, Sarah's reforms resulted in an ascendant Clan Wolverine, a clan with bountiful logistical capacity, abundant supplies, happy people, wealthy coffers, and technology surpassing their peers.
Fair is fair. Sarah seems like a really good ruler, frankly. Like, in another world, maybe she would have taken control. Like, let's say Nicholas dies, right, somehow. And, you know, she manages to take control of the clans. That could be a really interesting what-if scenario. Like, what if she took control and became, like, leader of the new Star League in exile? That's really interesting.
But this drew the sort of attention that, in clanner society, was unacceptable. Over time, Nicholas Kerensky assigned several clans to watch Wolverine for deviancy, and when Sarah McEvedy tried to ferret out these spies, the other clans took it as a sign she was guilty. For they believed, who would be afraid of being watched if they were doing what they should?
That's the classic thing, right? Like, why do you mind being watched? Are you doing something wrong? Like, yeah. It's called privacy, you freaking vultures.
Other clans saw Clan Wolverine as a dangerous antagonist and a destabilizing influence on the foundation of their entire society. Thinking Clan Wolverine was displaying unclan-like behavior, many of the other clans began to become openly critical and belligerent of Clan Wolverine in Grand Council sessions. Sarah wasn't an idiot. She knew she was being singled out. She kept doing what she thought was best for her people and refused to amend her ways, instead perhaps hoping to provide for an alternative path to greatness, a step away from the pseudo-spiritual nonsense of Nicholas Kerensky.
I think that's a bit of a mistake. I think in that moment, what you need to do is you need to find allies, not go against the grain to that extent. Like in that moment, you need to realize we are going a very different way than the rest of the clans. Let's try and see where we can make friends.
She wanted to demonstrate that by using good reason, sound logic, and this thing called actual wisdom, a clan could improve in ways that were mutually beneficial to all. Where other clans were content to stratify their society and burden it with endless rules, ritual, honor, and ceremony, she preached cooperation and reasonable conduct that they could all handsomely profit from. Needless to say, the disregard of Nicholas Kerensky and his supposed wisdom made Clan Wolverine many enemies. Things started to get truly bad in July of 2823. In July, an old Brian cache was found within Wolverine territory.
Oh boy.
The abandoned stockpile of military equipment was a tremendous boon for Clan Wolverine, and as such, it was something the other clans greatly desired. Clan Jade Falcon tried to win the cache through a trial of possession, and Jade Falcon lost. Badly. But being sore losers,
Good on Wolverine.
Clan Jade Falcon brought up the issue of the cache to the Grand Council in August of 2823. You see, it just wasn't a small arms stockpile. It was an enormous arms stockpile. It contained, among other things, a multitude of nuclear ordnance.
Oh.
Due to that and goofy laws clanners have regarding such things, Nicholas Kerensky determined the cache would be split up through trials of possession to ensure everyone had a chance at taking ownership of at least a part.
Can I call it right now? Wolverine wins like all of these and then gets killed because of it.
Sarah McEvity tried to protest using a trial of refusal. She failed, but then she made a mistake. I don't blame her for this. Above all, she was plainly tired of Nicholas Kerensky's shit. But rather than sit on her hands and pretend to obey, she called him on it, publicly.
Oh, no! Yeah, you need allies if you want to do something like that, you want to start a civil war? Get yourself some allies first.
To the Grand Council and all assembled, she stated it was impossible to have any fair treatment for her clan due to the interference of others. She pointed out the espionage conducted against her clan and provided evidence of being watched, of being relentlessly spied upon, and being manipulated. She pointed out that the Clanner Intelligence Service, what would someday be called the Watch, was organized principally to work in an antagonistic manner toward the Wolverines, and sadly, she wasn't wrong. So rather than try to appease everyone, or bend the knee to Nicholas and all those arranged against her, she told them to fuck off. And
frankly, I do respect her for it, I do, but, you know, no prizes for losing a war, right?
Fortunate for us, a recording of this very exchange survives to this day, raising questions as to its source.
My honorable friend, the Khan from Clan Wolverine, continues to ignore the decisions of this body as verified by the recent trial. I do not care that the cache is of the 331st Royal Division, her father's command. This body is agreed that the caches are a resource belonging to the clans as a whole. In the old order, her paternal loyalty would be commended. But this is not the old order. We are the clans. We stand on our own merits, not those of our ancestors.
Except you.
I
kinda love Sarah McEvedy. He might be one of my favorite characters yet.
beg your pardon.
I said, except you. You seem perfectly happy to bask in your father's achievements. He was a visionary who saw justice and peace for all. You seek control.
Khan McEvedy, you go too far!
Do I? I know many of you in this chamber found our Ilkhan's actions to secure control of the Pentagon population offensive. The Star League did not believe in torture and brutality. Those are the tools of power-hungry madmen. Is that what you have become, Nicholas Kerensky?
Yeah.
A power-hungry madman?
Silence! McEvedy, Khan of Clan Wolverine. I, Nicholas Kerensky, Il Khan of the clans, do call for a trial of grievance. By our law, you
Hang
may...
your laws. Does the truth hurt so much, Nicholas?
Fellow Khans, our colleague is clearly overwrought. I call for a vote of censure. Lawmaster Ward,
Don't
please.
bother, Nicholas. I'll leave. In fact, we'll all leave. Clan Wolverine no longer recognizes the authority of the Ilkhan or the Grand Council.
You know what? Good on her. I have to say, good on her. It might have been rash and probably she's gonna end, like, let's be honest, everyone in Clan Wolverine's gonna end up dead. But dang, if this is not a cool moment.
From this point forward, we are an independent power. We decide our own fate, fairly and according to the morals and standards of the Star League.
You cannot do this.
I can, and I have.
Arrest her.
If you want to face us, fine. But we will not hold back. Prepare to reap the whirlwind.
Okay, the only thing that I think wouldn't happen here is her walking out after putting a gun to Kerensky's face. The second she drops that gun, he's getting tackled.
My Khans, we face a serious decision.
And that's sadly all we have. That the record survived says a great deal.
It does.
The facts of it are certainly dangerous to Nicholas Kerensky's legacy. From what spotty records we have, we know there was a brief standoff. They left without shooting anybody. But what followed proves the point that Nicholas Kerensky had no room in his heart for dissidence to his brave new world or challenges to his authority. The clanners reacted.
Good on her for pointing out his hypocrisy, though, because, yeah, he's absolutely a hypocrite.
As you might to this news. Nukes were involved, as was the duplicity on the part of other clans. Clan Wolverine was more or less framed for some very dark deeds, and accordingly took the brunt of the blame. Nicholas Kerensky swiftly called for a trial of annihilation. According to the clans, Wolverine ceased to exist. They purged them from memory. They became the Unnamed Clan. And to this day, it's such a deep psychological scar that calling a clanner a Wolverine, or even comparing them to one inadvertently, is such an insult that it will start a brawl. What really happened to Wolverine, though, will be discussed in a future episode. Believe me, the story is far deeper than I can cover here and now. Let's just say the road didn't end there.
Yeah, I think she might be my favorite character so far. I do love I love a character that's willing to point out the hypocrisies of others. I also like the fact, and this is something that very true in Battletech as a whole, so far, and I don't think there's any characters in Battletech that are perfect, and there shouldn't be any. There are definitely some that are smarter than others and wiser than others, But overall, yeah, I like the fact that they are... I like the fact that it's so human, you know? It's so human. And I think that's a really strong part of Battletech.
And that when the smoke had cleared, Nicholas Kerensky discovered a good chunk of the clan missing, along with some ships from the mothballed fleetson system.
Oh dear.
Among them, a number of warships. But as I said, that's a story for another time. I only bring up Clan Wolverine to highlight one point. A brave new world requires sacrifice, and Nicholas Kerensky was intent on making others bear that responsibility. From here on out, disobedience would mean death. It would mean culling. It would mean control through secret police, through repression and punishment. This would be a society built on law, order, tradition, and most importantly, a very careful definition of honor. And all of those would be defined by Nicholas Kerensky's own twisted whims. Tragically, clanners didn't learn from the Wolverine problem. Unaddressed and unresolved differences between fiercely competitive clan structures would continue to plague the nascent civilization for some time.
So something that I find myself wondering is, like, when Nicholas is gonna die, because that's gonna get interesting as well. Sure, we'll get into it eventually, just, I'm curious how that's gonna play out.
From the records I have, I can firmly say that Clan Wolverine wasn't the only clan that disappeared in this time period. They snuffed the Widowmaker clan as well. Again, there's more to it than that. You see, clanners just can't play rock, paper, scissors to solve a dispute, nor do they lecture very well.
That's not nice.
We agreed you'd get to talk. Once. You said bargained and done.
That is fair.
Thank you. Anyways, clanners tend to solve disagreements by having a trial involving combat. And if people disagreed beyond that, they follow it up with a war. The end of the Widowmaker clan began with what was supposed to be what the clanners called a trial of absorption, wherein one clan gets sponged up by another. Widowmaker Khan Cal Jorgensen was dueling Wolf Khan Winson, and the winner would determine the fate of the trial and all those who followed them.
Does that mean if, in theory, the clan Widowmaker had won, Wolf would have been absorbed into Widowmaker? Is that how that works, or...? Just to make sure I understand it correctly, I think that's how it works, but yeah.
Clan Wolf was winning, and fairly, so the story goes, which made a few Mechwarriors from Clan Widowmaker rather angry. Those Mechwarriors decided to step in and sort the situation out their way. And so Nicholas Kerensky stepped in to remind everyone of the rules on October the 7th, 2834. In what is essentially a slap fight over who gets to wave what flag over what stuff. A stray shot from Cal Jorgensen's Highlander relegated Nicholas Kerensky to the past.
Oh!
The man who took his father's dream and used it to found the clans died as a mere referee in a fight that the culture he engineered demanded of the situation.
Okay, I want to point out, I didn't expect to get to Kerensky's death that fast. That's... okay, interesting, and very fitting.
Clanners took this death poorly.
Yeah.
And decided to work through their wounded feelings in the typical manner. They annihilated most of the Widowmakers and let Clan Wolf absorb what remained. Now down to 18 clans, the assembled Khans of each joined ranks in Kerensky's name and continued the work laid down by their founder. In their own way, they tried to fix the issues of the past through what means they found appropriate, based on an archaic sense of honor, ritualized combat, and, frankly, medieval combat trials for everything ranging from promotions to who get what shit. the clanner civilization would grow. Strangely enough, through their combined efforts, they began to finally prosper. There is an ancient Terran joke that sums up my feelings of Nicholas Kerensky's legacy, and it goes like this. It is said that none should speak badly about the dead. Nicholas Kerensky was dead, and that is good. Now that you're done sighing, let's move on.
I like that. I like that.
With all this set in motion and new ways replacing the old, clanners began to enjoy a period of peace and prosperity. Without Nicholas Kerensky's direct influence, meddling, or troublesome interpretations of his father's wishes, clanners finally had the right and freedom to choose what was best for them. From this point forward, you can see each clan starting to develop more in the shadow of their clan's leadership and foundational warrior caste than Nicholas Kerensky's direct mold.
It does make me wonder if Clan Wolverine had been a bit more subtle about things, and perhaps, you know, stuck around for a little bit. If they could have basically like survived until Clan Widowmaker dies, then they might have had a lot more of an easier way to kind of go their own way, you know? Easier time going their own way. Sorry.
With this, each clan was free to develop a sense of identity, something that continues to this day. After widespread expansion throughout their territories, and now with the freedom to self-determine to a scale never thought before possible, there was a period of time which is called the Golden Century.
Alrighty, intermission time. Alrighty, let's continue, shall we? I went and took a quick break because I hadn't eaten breakfast yet, so that's done now. Now with 300% more goob. Top 10 list of underrated dinner choices. Alright, let's see. Bacon, bacon, bacon wrapped steak, bacon, bacon. You know what? I'm gonna counter a little bit. Bacon is tasty, don't get me wrong, I do like bacon, but I do think bacon is also overrated. I think there's a lot of other good meats out there that kind of get forgotten because bacon is considered so good. Like, I like bacon a lot, but yeah. Mike's top 10 list. Alright, is it also gonna be bacon? Okay, that's funny. Lex doesn't like being made to feel special, doesn't celebrate his birthday, has trouble with all the newfound attention from strangers, is horribly awkward at social gatherings. Gives a good job message at most. That's understandable. Lex reads and keeps all the nice letters he receives and reads them when he's feeling. Aww, that's nice. That's also a really good way of dealing with, like, negative feelings. Doug Davian, Tysa Davis, and many other kind members of the Battletech community went out of the way to show Tex he's loved. Tex doesn't know what to do about this. Any tips would be appreciated because he often reacts with holy hag. Well, as somebody who has difficulty with self-love on a regular basis, my tip would be try to understand from their perspective, you know, like, try to see it from the other person's perspective. Like, for example, that other person might have had a really bad day, but then they see that there's a new video and there's a moment of, oh, yay! Like, make their day a little bit better. And that's very valuable, I think. Maybe as a podcast, on a scale of 0 to 10, it's an absolutely solid 7. Just like talking in the intermissions like this. Nice. The is called Pink Bikini is by Kumakin. SoundCloud is below. Message him, hire him. He writes badass music. Honestly, I might need to. He's written music for commercial production from games to commercials. You want something fun or weird? He's your man. Heck yeah. Good also writes music. SoundCloud is the battle hymn of the Mechwarrior and many other quality tunes. Not doing that. He's a great DM. But he's being generally uplifting. Heck yeah. Take a look at that as well. Jekyll. Been in choir/classical music. It's an actual mariachi. Dropship Thunder and it has Sana credit. Also cool. Yeah, I'd be totally up for that. Tex was interviewing Sananet and was so humble he was even approached. It only feels like he's just another voice in the choir, not really all that remarkable. Mike's MOS in the US Army was 92F. He knows a lot about Bernie juice, oh boy. Also, I just want to say, it's okay to be humble. That's perfectly fine. Just don't put yourself down, Tex. It's okay to be proud of the things you make. You know? The cop in Far Cry 5 with a cop is actually a cop and a Navy veteran. Often says, Jesus Christ, guys, and then laughs at most of us shenanigans. He's been on the front lines during this whole thing and busting ass. I just wanted to put this here to honor him for being an exceptional human being, because he is. Aww. Oh, good for him. This countdown was for a time a real-life firefighter. Favorite pizza place is 99 cent fresh by the Chrysler building. Hatton on East 43rd Street. To deal with quarantine, the BPL put up its Project Zomboid server. Instantly evolved into tribes. One is called the Bean Bandits. They sold people's beans with judicious use of fire axes. Yeah, that sounds about right. The Bean Bandits. Nick's with Hands of the BPL got his name because he almost died digging with hands in Project Zomboid. Nick has never forgiven him for this. Mr. Nick of the BPL is a sergeant in the United States Air Force. His hobbies include playing games like Anno and being the voice behind Steiner Command. The BPL has an enormous amount of military veterans. It wouldn't take much to form a nation or fringe count, just saying. Yeah, just start a micronation, guys. Like, it is interesting how popular Battletech is with military veterans. I've noticed that as well in my own community. There are quite a lot of mostly American veterans now I think about it. Like European, there are a few, but not nearly as many. It's interesting. Next made Mike a mountain of corn dog and tendies when he edited the Blackjack episode. Aww. I do like that these guys seem to generally care about each other. The episode took almost 2 months to make, the long ones generally do. This case scenario to take 800 plus man hours to make, and does take upward of 1200. This was one of those. Thanks for being patient. Yeah, I feel that. My longer videos, like Army After Hours, can take so freaking long. Oh my goodness. This source of information on how batshit crazy the plans are is none other than Blaine Pardue, New York Times best-selling true crime author, Battletech law degree qualified poster. I think Zelda with Tex is a really nice guy. Tex anyway. Looking for a decent Battletech community to join, Tex recommends the Everything Battletech community. Find the Discord link there for their community. If you ever want to find a game, or living community for it, go there. I will also say my own Discord. It has been quite good about that so far. If you join and scroll all the way to the bottom, there's a BPL section with text. So don't be mean. Let's be good meg folks. Yeah. Tex's hobby. Firearms, writing, role-playing games, video games, hanging out with friends. Yeah, sounds about right. Actually wonder, what is Tex's favorite gun? If anybody knows, or hey, Tex, if you happen to see this video, what is your favorite gun if you have to pick one? I want to nerd out with guns with you. Computers? Building computers. Teaching computers how to overthrow the shackles of humanity, rise above base programming limitations, ruling the world through his coterie of AI. Rattling on Tex's desk when he types is the 15 magazines of 45 ACP he keeps there. Yeah, that sounds about right. It's actually over 30. Finished the Mosin gun from Cosmopoline, damaged, chipped, dented, pitted, and rusted into this. Oh, very nice. I do love a Mosin. Very clean. Just things like this when he gets bored. Yeah, that's the mood. Tex's old keyboard used in a half-decade of content was Mr. Clicky. Sent it to a fan recovering from cancer. He now uses a far quieter keyboard. Remember Mr. Clicky. Emotes did reach out in reference to the Blackjack episode. I need to watch that one. Dear Randolph P. Checkers. Aztec, Blackjack, and Marauder. Ton of money. Litigation. Forfeiture of your editor's hot dog supply. Okay. GM branded hot dogs. Future stompy bipedal murder assault platforms. GM doesn't respond. General Motors doesn't respond to Bajals. Sincerely, please just stop asking us about self-sustaining fusion reactors already. Ah, that's great. That's honestly really good. I do have a sense of humor and have been very good sports. I can. Excited fans decide what goes into best of Space Station 13 play. I think it's fairer that way. Usually people say, put this in best of, and he goes, okay. Very fair. It's always good to ask your community about stuff. June 2021 will mark 10 years on YouTube for the Black. X never thought he'd get to 1,000 subscribers. Let's prove them wrong and doesn't know what to think about it. One of the checkers has been an employee of Nanotrasen for 12 years. X and Mike both like old games, more games. Fair enough, honestly. That's a fair thing to think. Personally, for me it varies a lot because, like, I feel like there are a lot of good old games, but there is also a lot of newer games that are really, really good. Like right now, we are kind of going through an indie renaissance in a lot of ways. Let's see, Tex and Mike are both TOS era fans of Star Trek and think DS9 was highly underrated. True, DS9 is great. And my personal favorite is still Next Generation. The greatest Voyager and Enterprise were the weakest Star Trek shows until Discovery. Voyager, I wanted to like Voyager, but it just didn't click with me. Maybe because the idea of it is awesome, but it just kind of, I don't know, it didn't click with me. I didn't watch Enterprise. I also haven't seen Discovery or Picard. I've heard bad things, but yeah. I will say, if you're okay with a show that kind of makes fun of Star Trek, but like in a loving way, I quite liked Lower Decks, personally. I thought Lower Decks was quite fun. Let's see, what else do we have here? Mada's Guardian, who occasionally plays fun and weird stuff on the BPM. First editor. He's a good friend of Tex and encouraged him at the time art. He's also the man who made the spinny doodad meme work. Praise him. Praise him! Tex likes getting weird cameos for his content. Sprinkled throughout. So try to get Civvy 11 or Ross Scott at some point. We get a random voice of madness. That would be fun. Next thing, I'd frequently be seen playing Goon Station is off hours. Okay. I assume that's part of Goon Swarm. I actually have a funny story about Goon Swarm. I once stole a super carrier from them in EVE Online. That was like, oh god, that was probably like 15 years ago or something insane like that. It was a long time ago. I don't remember exactly what the specifics were, but like, I stole a super carrier from them back when those were still relatively new. I remember that. I just don't remember when that happened specifically. But I do remember it caused a big battle, and the super carrier did end up like dying, but it was fun, so it's okay. Sheer amount of love that Battletech community has shown in this era of the Battletech Renaissance has been a great inspiration to our work. Heck yeah. It is nice to see like a new generation of folks be interested in Battletech, you know what I mean? Like, I'm one of those new generation folks. And get a proper Battletech game on PC on the regular, all will be right in the world. Admittedly, while Mechwarrior is still there, and then HBS's Battletech was really good, I'd love to see something like that again in the future. Like, HBS's Battletech was great. I'd love to get like a follow-up or something. I know, legal issue. But I've also vastly underrated treatment. True. Book 4. The World Commander is the Legion's penetrant and because it's let himself Photoshop and editing is an apt-handed meaning loving haircut of any. Even made Mobachal. Hope you're ready, movie starting back up. Alright, here we go. The Golden Century.
Without Nicholas Kerensky's overbearing hands on the wheel of state, the clanners truly began to come into their own. Long held back by a man who, as established, busied himself with the endless imaginative redressing of his father's work and wisdom, the clanners were now free for once to determine their own fates, and what they would create are works of legend. This era would be a high point for the clans in prosperity, growth, and technological achievement.
Okay.
Clan Coyote, well known for engineering and technological expertise from a lauded science caste, would field the first Omni-Mech by 2854. Battle armor would come into existence in 2868 when Clan Wolf thought that mech pilots looked a bit too comfortable around infantry and decided to do something about that. In this era, some clans absorbed others. Some fought each other in mock battles, or very real ones. Throughout, there was a restoration of peace, dignity, and honor that would define them for generations afterward. No longer in the shadow of a despotic madman, each clan began to grow according to their own needs, demonstrating again, in my opinion, that Nicholas's death was a necessary step in the evolution of the clans from what they were into what they are.
It does make me now wonder, like, imagine if Nicholas had stayed alive for a longer time. Would that have caused more issues like Clan Wolverine? You know what I mean? Like, Clan Wolverine, I think, realistically, during the Golden Century, would have probably been fine. Like, they might have been kind of mistrusted, but I imagine, you know, it's your clan, kind of do what you want to an extent, you know? So, I wonder.
Without his direct input, each clan had to interpret for themselves the wishes of the founders, and accordingly, what were small deviations from the norm slowly manifested into unique cultural developments. I'll name a few here for the sake of argument, in your own interest, but I feel that each clan could easily be a lecture on their own in the future.
Oh, I can imagine.
Again, let me know. Clan Wolf was the chosen clan of Nicholas Kerensky post-Operation Klondike. And since that point, they have been a power player in clan politics. Over time, they have demonstrated flexibility on and off the battlefield and frequently act when decisiveness is necessary to achieve victory. Clan Wolf is pretty much your stereotypical clanner. Honor-bound, intelligent, shrewd, and cunning. Some are die-hard traditionalists, where others are certainly more forward-thinking. Clan Wolf is responsible for the annihilation of Clan Wolverine and the absorption of Clan Widowmaker. They are the crazy bastards who developed good battle armor and applied it in their tactical doctrine with frightening efficiency.
Honestly, Clan Wolf kind of feels a little bit like, for a 40k comparison, they feel a little bit like the clanners, if that makes sense. Like the standard clanners. In the same way that, like, the Ultramarines feel like the standard Space Marines, if that makes sense.
Post-death of Nicholas Kerensky, Clan Wolf embraced the flexibility of Clan Wolverine's system of civilian freedom, or at least tried. This resulted in vast economic expansion and a hell of a lot of opportunity. Clan Wolf frequently tends to seek trials to acquire new tech, whenever their own science caste falls short. For instance, they made a successful trial to gain access to elemental genomic programs from Clan Hell's horses and then applied that to their own power armor technology. But
and that's how you get elemental, right?
Where trials would be unsuitable, Clan Wolf embraces free trade to acquire what it needs. Thanks to relaxed economic policy, Clan Wolf certainly has the purchasing power to get what it needs. Most of all, and doubly so after Nicholas Kerensky's demise, Clan Wolf has become the clan of compromise. They are the voice of reason more often than not, trying to balance the survival of the clans with the wants of the individual, and often trying to see the long-term impact of any major decision. Some resent this as fence-sitting, but with their success rate, I would argue this is more prudence than indecision. Clan
Makes sense to me.
Falcon is their polar opposite. They are strictly tradition and honor-bound.
From what I know about these guys, and I'm sure we'll get into it, these are like the villains.
Being founded by Elizabeth Hazen of the Black Watch, their foundation was established by very high standards. But she was one of the 4 founders, truth be told. Daniel Matloff was another. He was a fighter pilot of note attached to the 11th Royal Battlemech Division. And amusingly, he joined the Exodus after inheriting a ducal title in the Inner Sphere and then deciding that leaving was better than staying. Carly Kaza was another founder. He was one of the few who was a dedicated infantryman and a veteran of not only the Ameris Civil War, but an internment camp of the same regime.
I'm gonna be real, I feel like being infantry in the Battletech universe is probably one of the worst jobs you can have. Like, good lord.
He joined up to put his tortured past behind him. The last of the founders was Lisa Buhalan, who was a guerrilla with Hazen from her days on Terra fighting Ameris.
Oh,
From these
wow, okay.
individuals, a clan leadership emerged, and from their strict observations on discipline, honor, and tradition, a clan was formed around those ideals. A clan that, well, fits the worst nightmare scenario for the Inner Sphere. When you think of the bloodthirsty, single-minded, crusading clan archetype, Clan Jade Falcon is one of the 2 you are thinking about. After the death of Nicholas Kerensky, Clan Jade Falcon embraced conservatism and became the first among the clans to strictly adhere to Nicholas's teachings. Whereas Clan Wolf embraced freedoms for its civilian population, Clan Jade Falcon saw it as blasphemy and clamped down on any notion of individual expression of freedom or desire for change. The strength of Clan Jade Falcon, however,
Yeah, that sounds about right. Like I said, they seem kind of like the villains among the clan.
is not from military discipline or its stranglehold on its civilian population. Its strength, above all things, is its banking system. Being shrewd, cunning, and
Yep, they're villains.
calculating, Clan Jade Falcon bankers are terrifying by all reports. Despite setbacks and the loss of colonies under their control over concerns of civilians not liking the Emerald Parakeet or its demands, the Jade Falcon's
The Emerald Parakeet is a very funny name for them.
banking system has ensured vast power and enormous wealth. So much so that a popular saying among the clans is as sharp as the talons of a falcon banker. Clan Ghost Bear is probably the clan I like the most. That is to say, I tolerate them more than everyone else because they're the most reasonable.
Admittedly, I like them too because they actually work with the Rasselhag, from what I'm aware.
If Clan Wolf were accused of being fence-setters, Clan Ghost Bear would be the we shall see clan. Ghost Bear is cautious, never jumping into a fray or political jumble unless they deem it necessary, which is seldom to say the least. Also to note, they're the most human of the clans. They have a strong sense of family, doing away with many clanner observations on such structures as being unclan-like. In fact, a lot of what Clan Ghost Bear does in regard to interpersonal conduct and family structure is probably the most recognizable among the clans.
Okay.
While distrustful of outsiders, they do help each other and do recognize the good in a stranger if they are honorable enough.
Good on Clan Ghost Bear. They seem kinda nice in a way. I mean, obviously, this is all, relative, because we're still talking about a clan that can absolutely crush you underfoot if you end up fighting them.
They also have a sense of humor. To prove my point, I turn your attention to the events of December 3051. When Clan Ghost Bear invaded the planet of Shaiyiee, the Panic Defenders accepted the challenge, but specified the contest would be measured by the outcome of an ancient Terran game.
Oh.
Football was its name. American football. The idea was that the clanners wouldn't know about this ancient Terran game and would lose, therefore leaving Shaiyiee untouched by the war. As it turns out, they were fucking wrong. Ghost Bear not only loves American football, considering it their best sport, but they also field a team of 8-foot-tall elementals. Shaiyiee lost 84-3. I think
Wow, Shaiyiee actually got 3 points. That's impressive.
the clanners let them have that 3 out of honor, respect, and pity. During the post-game show, As American football traditionally requires, the planetary government of Shaiyiee quietly but formally ceded control and lowered its flags. Needless.
I mean, fair is fair. At least, you know, it's better than losing your entire planet through war, right? Like, sure, you're now on a new management, but at the very least, your planet didn't get destroyed. In that sense, I do like the clans.
To say, they're pretty alright. For clanners, that is. Clan Diamond Shark is an interesting study.
Ooh.
Once upon a time, they were Clan Sea Fox. That is until they saw a sea fox get eaten by a diamond shark. Nature is fucking cool like that.
Isn't it also, didn't diamond sharks get, like, genetically engineered by another clan or something? I remember reading something about that. I think somebody in the comments mentioned it last time. Because, like, that is somewhere in my mind.
And I suppose that story, if apocryphal as many of their stories may be, demonstrates the nature of Clan Diamond Shark. Ultimately, they're very flexible. Clan Diamond Shark is probably the most progressive of the clans. They permit not only individual freedom, but universal suffrage.
Ooh.
Economic policies are terrifyingly effective. And
Okay, I'm a big fan of that. I do love me some individual freedoms.
have become labeled by their fellow clans as the Merchant Clan. This title is granted out of jealousy, mind you, because Clan Diamond Shark's business practices have made it a shitload of fucking money, and they take pride in it. Clan Diamond Shark is not as willing to make a contest of things using force of arms if they can negotiate, and they're damn good at it. If there are monopolies on resources, Clan Diamond Shark ensures they are theirs, from which they reap vast profits. Clan Diamond Shark is an example of what a clan can be by interpreting the rules in such a way as to remain compliant, if barely, with the foundational wishes of Nicholas, while also seeking new horizons, if only for fat stacks of cash.
Diamond Shark kind of feels like Wolverine to some extent, which I'm sure they would, like, kill me for making that comparison. But they really do. They really do.
Nicholas Kerensky's wild new civilization, governed by warriors and ancient notions of hard-won battlefield honor, was firmly on a far different path than any, even Nicholas, could have ever predicted. And while it was strange as all hell, this new society was tailor-made to survive the rigors of deep space and adopted wholesale by what was once and distantly the SLDF. But that's really only the beginning, for they remembered the words of Alexander Kerensky, and they had never forgotten the inner sphere.
Oh boy. Here we go.
Despite the exodus and years away from the civilization they fled generations ago, clanners were still fixated on the old world and whatever may have happened to it. For generations now, they had been told the stories of the exodus, of being cast out of a seeming Eden despoiled by the corrupt and tyrannical great houses of the former Star League. Through their trials and tribulations, through the changes they had endured, and the lessons hard won, above all things, they remembered the Hidden Hope Doctrine, as it became called, Alexander Kerensky's order that one day they might return to save the inner sphere, became a topic of debate. From their youth, generations of clanners had been taught that the inner sphere was once an Eden of endless, verdant worlds, spoiled and ruined by corrupt nobility.
In a way, that's actually true.
Out. They had been forced on an exodus to save what they could of Star League. And from Nicholas Kerensky's version of this history, they were the rightful people to set things right, seeing themselves as the true inheritors of the inner sphere. And with sufficient power now at their disposal, deep in the heart of every clanner, there was an urge to return one day to restore the Inner Sphere to the glorious era of the Star League.
Oh boy. You just know this is gonna get messy, like, right away.
Clan society had two competing viewpoints on this matter. One faction had believed that they needed to settle up, ride on back to the Inner Sphere, and re-establish the Star League at any cost with themselves as leaders. Their aim was to guide a society back to its roots, its noble roots, directly under their care and watchful governance. So what if they had to re-engineer their culture and smash anyone who opposed them? It was their calling to set this right. In Kerensky's name, at least. This faction would become known as the Crusaders. The opposing viewpoint wasn't really all that different at the beginning. They still believed in taking over the Inner Sphere, but with differences on how to accomplish what followed.
That makes
They
sense.
believed their mission should be to save the Inner Sphere from any outside threat or inside destabilizing faction, but also to maintain a separate and distinct culture from them, and allowing the Inner Sphere to do the same. This faction became known as the Wardens. Back and forth, these two factions would debate.
It's interesting that there's only two factions. I feel like there's potential for more of them even. You'd have a faction that, while they want to return to the Inner Sphere, very much do not want commit their own forces to it, you know. I'm sure there's some clans that stayed back, right? I'm sure we'll get into it.
Fiercely, even fighting among themselves for the right to lead an invasion. In 2980, the clans would motion to convene a grand council to do just that. However, the Wardens prevailed, in a motion led by the heads of clans Wolf and Coyote. But this balance of opinion wouldn't last. The Wardens knew that people were getting antsy, and fulfilling one's purpose is kind of the point of living the way they had. Debate would continue furiously, violently at times, until the dawn of the third millennium, with immense pressure pushing toward invasion of the Inner Sphere. Clan Wolf came up with a compromise to buy time. The compromise went like this. To invade, you need intelligence.
Right?
So what if the clans were to send in a group of lowly freebirth warriors with outmoded equipment and ancient mechs to the Inner Sphere to pose as mercenaries and
I know where this is gonna go.
over time work for the various Inner Sphere houses to gauge their war-making capacity. By fighting for each of the great houses, the mercenary group would learn not only about the militaries of the Inner Sphere, but the political situation, and most importantly, how soft they might have grown. This group was called the Wolf's Dragoons. They left for the Inner Sphere on a mission of espionage and intelligence gathering for the invasion to come. But the Inner Sphere has a way of changing people. Over time, they reported less and less back to the clan homeworlds. They seemingly went native in 3019 and began secretly preparing the Inner Sphere for the clan invasion they knew would be inevitable. I plan on covering them more at some point in the future, but needless to say, the news of their apparent defection had some rather powerful consequences.
Also, about the Wolf's Dragoons, from what I know of them, you see, the Wolf's Dragoons come to the Inner Sphere, right? And they're like, hey guys, we have a bunch of, like, old, outdated mechs and stuff. Can you hire us to do, you know, your dirty work, etc.? Do mercenary work, as you do. Meanwhile, the Inner Sphere, like, oh my god, what is this stuff you have? Jesus Christ, this is so good! Which I love the idea that the clans are like, oh, you know, it's outdated equipment. It won't raise any red flags. Meanwhile, the Inner Sphere is like, what the frig?
The Crusaders back in clan space took the news of their apparent desertion poorly and renewed their call for an invasion. By the time they'd heard of the Fourth Succession War and the War of 3039, clanners were biting at the bit to jump in and save the Inner Sphere from itself. The wardens believe that perhaps in time, the clans would have accepted just sitting way out in the deep periphery and minding their own fucking business, content to argue endlessly about one day maybe going back to the Inner Sphere to sort them out. However, tragically, that's not what happened. In summer of 30...
Also feels very naive to me. Like, I feel like when people want something, and generations of people want something, eventually it's gonna happen. Like, it might take a while, it might take hundreds of years, it might take even thousands, but eventually it's gonna happen.
The Outbound Light, a Comstar exploration vessel, jumped onto Huntress, the capital world of Clan Smoke Jaguar. They'd been sent on a long-range recon to find out whatever had happened to the SLDF. They had no idea what they were getting into. Clan Smoke Jaguar interrogated the crew and became convinced this vessel was the precursor to an invasion from the Inner Sphere. They brought select, skewed evidence extracted from the rigorous interrogation of the Outbound Light's crew to the council chambers.
I kind of feel bad for the Outbound Light's crew, because I imagine generally when you're, like, exploring, it's mostly scientists, etc., right? So these would just be folks that are curious. I'm sure there were some warriors in there as well, but still, they didn't exactly deserve to be imprisoned and interrogated and probably killed, let's be honest.
And within a month, the clanners voted to invade the Inner Sphere before anyone came looking for their lost ship. And with that, the invasion was on, and the rest, as they say, is history.
Hubris. Alright, here we go.
Any other consideration, even the most amateur student of history will note that exceptional hubris is never going to end well. In trying to correct the issues of the old world, the clans discarded what they thought they no longer needed. However, with education and training focused as it was, and ambition ingrained into everything they did, they forgot the necessary lessons of the past, to include the madness of human nature. Clanners believe their society to be based on honor, but I feel it's based on carefully constructed lies. But I guess on that basis, they're not that different from you and I.
Fundamentally, human society and humans as a species are built out of stories. Fundamentally, a nation is a story we tell each other. A culture is a story we tell each other. A religion is a story we tell each other. And even our lives, our memories, are stories we tell ourselves, because our memories are reconstructive, not, what's the word I'm looking for? Your memories don't just reproduce, they build from what they think what happened. Yeah.
General Alexander Kerensky was to his people a George Washington or a Cincinnatus. Nicholas Kerensky, on the other hand, was Jim Jones, thinking he was Alexander the Great. And the society he built was founded on some rather flawed concepts regarding the Inner Sphere.
I feel like if we're going to compare Nikolai Kerensky to any given historical figure, I would compare him to Stalin. Because Stalin took a existing system, like if Alexander Kerensky is Lenin, right? Like doing reforms and making like everyone work together in some way, then Stalin, or Nikolai in this case, very much is the one that completely warped it into something else that didn't suit the original.
Inner invasion was doomed from the start for many reasons. The vast distances involved made 1,000 light-year logistics train a damn nightmare, leading to insufficient equipment being brought to the front.
Can I just say, Battletech having like a real sense of logistics is something that I really appreciate. I feel like a lot of settings and a lot of games, etc., don't really care about logistics. Not fundamentally. RTSs tend to, and all of that kind of thing. But if you look at something like Battlefield 6, for example, the story in that one, it's just kind of like, yeah, they have troops there now. Why? Like, the enemy now has troops in New York. How did they manage this? Whatever. I know. Battlefield is not exactly a deep story, but you get me.
Held back their full force, despite having vast advantages in technological superiority. They refused to employ their weapons to full effect, and in the name of honor, they bid away every advantage they had. They thought they could take on the Inner Sphere by playing fair, by holding back and bidding low numbers to fight for the sake of honor. And throughout, they disregarded the disproportionate numbers arrayed against them. They didn't know how to take an opponent who thought that rules and war were mutually exclusive concepts. They were unprepared for the realities of the Inner Sphere, as they had built for themselves a vision of it which was grounded in mythology. Further, we must consider that a civilization is a social contract between those living, those dead, and those yet to be born. A civilization is essentially a plan to build a better future, with the baton of statehood placed into the next generation's hands to carry forward as best they're able. Many nations transfer power generationally with a warning to mind your history and never repeat the terrible mistakes of the past.
Alright, this is completely unrelated to the whole civilization thing, because I am 100% on board with that. I just want to mention, I really like her hair. This lady's hair is really nice. I'm so sorry.
Their traditions primed them to believe they were the best of the best, and that by holding true to what they were taught, they were undefeatable. The clanners have a history that's incomplete, a history of lies and revisionism. It's a history that deletes that which does not serve its purposes, and in doing so does away with important lessons that may preserve the future. A nation needs to learn from its mistakes, its missteps, its horrible errors. It needs to see where it fucked up, learn, and move on. With a distorted understanding of who they were and a warped view of their own history, the clanners were primed for failure.
This is something that I have massive respect with Germany, for example. They know they messed up in World War II. They understand that, and they are very, very honest and open about that to the next generation. Like, hey, look, this was a massive misstep. Never again. And I think that's really good. I think that's really healthy in general. And same thing with, like, Belgium, for example. Belgium has messed up in a big way in the Congo. And nowadays, we are a lot more open about having that conversation here in Belgium itself, which is nice. I like that. Because every country, every nation, every culture has done something bad, right? From Canada to Afghanistan to the America to Russia to Brazil to China. Everyone has their sins, and I think it's good to acknowledge those, but without necessarily, like, without necessarily saying you personally are responsible, but rather as a learning experience. I think that's really healthy, and I think it's something that, at the very least in Europe, is going pretty well. I imagine in some other countries it's maybe, but, it's something I encourage in people. Like, look up the ugly parts of your history as well.
From broken men and women, the clans were founded. From a madman's creative interpretation of his father's will, they were ordained with a noble quest, and on this basis alone, they waged war. War to the clanners has strict rules of conduct based on honor. Unfortunately for them, war is about adaptability and their stubborn adherence to honor-bound ways that would ruin them. With every battle...
Now I find myself wondering if Clan Diamond Shark would have done well in the Inner Sphere. I don't actually know if they went into the Inner Sphere. Like, I know Ghost Bear and Wolf did. I don't know if anyone else did. Maybe Jade Falcon as well.
The Inner Sphere learned. With every battle, the clans grew weaker. The road to their pursuit of honor and glory above all else was littered with corpses and broken machines. I find clanner culture itself to be a bad parody. Even a poor caricature maintains core elements of similarity with the subject matter. This was something else entirely. This was a civilization built on a cursory, amateur study of history, wherein a brain-damaged nutbag with a messiah complex took a strong look at Mao's 20th century state and said, yeah, that'll work. And like most failed police states, he said this was to preserve and protect his people from ruin, which he aimed to accomplish by repeating the mistakes of the past. The clan war machine is a contradiction at best. It's a civilization that builds the strongest, nastiest, most useful tools and then bids them away. It's a civilization that has an absolute technological lead on an opponent and then refuses to use its full force to preserve an abstract notion like honor. It was, by the start of the invasion, a civilization run by warriors without actual, meaningful theater-scale warfighting experience against a vastly numerically superior opponent. A war they lost the moment the Inner Sphere realized that to the clans, war has rules. I care enough at this juncture to tell you point blank.
Before we get into his next point, really quickly, I find honor a really interesting concept, by the way, because what does that actually mean? Because it means something different to every person. Honor is such an abstract thing. And I admit, I find it sometimes like gets thrown around just kind of as a throwaway, like, oh, you know, for honor, like you know, you'll be honor, glory, respect, that sort of thing. They could use the synonyms, but they're not. It's a weird thing. Honor is weird.
If one thing is goddamn certain, Total War has no rules. Total War has the guy who survives, the guy who's more cruel, more cunning, more imaginative, and slightly crazier than his opponent. History has shown us, time and again, that those who win Total War are those who are willing to change the game, to invent new ways of destroying their enemy, and then apply them in short order to accomplish this goal.
You know what's funny? We have actually very few examples of Total War in our own history. World War I and II come to mind, obviously, and funny enough, in a way, the American Revolution was Total War. France. Because France itself kind of caused its own revolution by bankrupting itself in the American Revolution. So, yeah, there's a bunch of interesting stuff with that, where there's definitely arguments to be made that something like Genghis Khan's conquests were Total War. But were they, though? I don't know. Other than World War I and World War II, I feel the amount of examples that are out there of actual Total War are very limited, especially ever since, you know, Vietnam was hardly Total War. Korea definitely wasn't Total War. Although there were some rumblings of that. But you get me.
And this lesson was free to all people who could crack a book and ask questions. But that's the ultimate tragedy here. By rewriting history, lessons are forgotten. By restricting freedom of thought, of choice, of expression, positive outcomes are diminished. The Inner Sphere's greatest achievement was that after 4 succession wars, they had learned how to fight and how not to. After 4 succession wars, they knew what their territory was worth and how to defend it. After 4 succession wars, the Inner Sphere knew that war had few, if any, rules. And those rules were maintained only so long as the balance of power was maintained. When the
Indeed. Which also, by the way, gives the Inner Sphere an incentive to maintain said balance of power. So something that upsets it is fundamentally very dangerous. It's actually why you get stuff like the Concert of Europe in real life, like the 19th century Concert of Europe, etc.
Dismissed
Sorry, I'm going on into like real life history, I'm noticing. I hope that's not a bother.
the inner sphere, as their history had taught them to. They made a critical fucking error. Pre-clan invasion, nobody in the inner sphere, save Comstar, knew what an Omni-Mech was. Almost immediately, after the start of the conflict, inner sphere technicians and scientists were reverse engineering clan tech and would have Omni-Mechs of their own. With every battle, the clans grew weaker. With every battle, the inner sphere learned. Lost technology was rapidly reintroduced, and examples of the finest equipment ever made was being used against those who wielded it. Further, I posit this. I firmly believe that Nicholas Kerensky had been a pretender, a man who...
Before we get more into Nicholas Kerensky's thing, I wonder if there's like straight up a moment. So, okay, since I keep going back to real life history, at one point during the Punic War, I think this was the first Punic War, a Carthaginian quinquereme got captured by the Romans, right? Now, mind you, at this point, the Romans don't get seafaring very well, but they capture one of these quinqueremes, and they're like, you know what, this is a really good design, let's copy it. So they do, and become good ship makers as a result, and eventually end up winning the war on the sea. In the same way, I do know that the Innisphere had stuff like the Rakshasa. I find myself wondering how often planar tech ended up in the hands of the Innisphere. I imagine early on, not very, but later on, once the clans started getting defeated, you know, you happen to pop someone in the cockpit, boom, that's a free timberwall for you, you know?
Who'd never won so much as a fist fight, being the least likely of the Exodus to rise to command. And yet he did. He had fashioned himself as a messianic figure from a noble lineage and retouched history to reinforce his vision. But with as much as he took from his father, he forgot two things. Firstly, how to deal with failure. There's an ancient Terran saying that the measure of a man's success is how he moves from failure to failure with no loss of enthusiasm. General Alexander Kerensky had known failure. He had failed to see the true aim of Ameris until it was too late. He had failed to instill wisdom enough into young Richard Cameron to prevent what happened. He had failed to unify the inner sphere. He had failed to save it from itself, and yet he had never once given up.
Yeah, I do think that sort of that's a good lesson in general. You get knocked down, but you get up again.
Maintained his poise and nobility of character despite every challenge to his continued command, and he never stopped trying. He made the best choices he could, for better or worse. Nicholas Kerensky had never had to deal with failure, and saw greatness as an inherited trait. Rather than learn from a mistake, he erased existence of it. When someone challenged him, he had them destroyed. When people refused to toe the line, he made them enemies of the people. He wanted to be infallible and made certain history proved him right, even if he had to write it himself. But I did say he forgot two things, the second of which being the lasting error insofar as history is concerned. He had forgotten the nature of war. Total war, true war, uninhibited by morals, laws, or restraint. Total war does not forgive mistakes lightly. It's not merely a question of who has better fighters or equipment or honor, but who has more weapons and ammo and bodies to throw at the problem. Which leads to another ancient Terran saying, children study tactics, men study logistics.
And great generals study everything. Because here's the thing. Logistics, yes, absolutely, 100%. But here's the thing. No matter how good your logistics is, there is a fundamental point where you have to find the strategy in the moment. On the one hand, see, there's an interesting thing here. So on the one hand, yes, logistics is super important, and I don't want to understate that by any means. And I do think in history, quite often, the great victories of generals are focused on these like single moments of greatness, you know, like, Stonewall Jackson mauled the core in the 19th century. Wow, look at him, you know, that kind of stuff. But there is a fundamental thing where, I don't know, my mind is kind of going everywhere, I'm sorry. But basically what I'm trying to say, I think, is strategy is all of those things. Logistics is very important and fundamentally very strong, but there's this idea that it needs to be one or the other. And frankly, no. You need to have a balance of it. You need to be good at logistics and strategy and tactics and all of these other things. You need to understand so much. And that's actually fundamentally why things like warrior kings stopped being a thing. Because, well, frankly, kings tended to not get it anymore. Because nowadays, war is complicated, and it is a full-time job to even understand a small part of it, let alone the whole thing. Anyway, sorry, my little rant there on that.
Whoever brings to the theater of war the greater means by which to wage it is going to have the upper hand.
True.
Declaring war on the inner sphere was a foolish endeavor, spurred on by a sense of manifest destiny, itself brought on by the belief they were fulfilling their purpose. They started an invasion against an enemy that vastly outnumbered them. They began a conquest with a 1,000-light-year logistics chain using equipment both supremely expensive to replace and slow to build. Their warriors were great and mighty, and truly capable of fighting many times their number. But
and frankly, the fact that they did so well as they did is quite something.
They were few, and none had seen an actual grand-scale conflict, nor waged a war in the inner sphere. Their sense of honor and belief in strict rules governing behavior on and off the battlefield further destroyed their war efficiency. They bid away their greatest assets and at times vast material advantages to have a fair fight, or at least feel better when they lost. They bid away warships and entire war fleets when the great houses had none. They bid away elite forces to have some semblance of fairness in the fight, and behind the scenes, they bid against each other, even going so far as to work with the enemy in order to shame their rivals or sabotage their ambition. And by placing honor and strict obedience to their beliefs above the actual conduct of war, they paid for it, and dearly. Hell, their invasion was delayed a year. A full year mid-invasion, they stopped dead in their tracks when a brave Rasselhag pilot kamikazed their command ship and killed the Ilkhan.
Heck yeah, Rasselhag.
Any reasonable army would have named a successor from the chain of command and pressed on. Their system of belief required they return to the clan homeworld and choose a new leader, which they did. And they didn't learn from this. They kept waging the war the way they had been taught was acceptable. With every battle, they taught the inner sphere their weaknesses and failed to adapt to their own shortcomings. Despite lengthy reconnaissance, they drew ignorant conclusions from the evidence. They dismissed the leaders of the inner sphere as pretenders, barbarians, and wretched fools. And this spectacular hubris would forge their defeat on an inconsequential world in 3052.
You know, that's a funny thing. I keep going back to the Roman Empire. In a way, Rome became great. They adapted because they took things from other people. They took the saddles from the Scythians. They took their helmet from the Boeotians. They took their shields from the Etruscans, and so on. They took from other cultures and integrated them, learned from them, became better because of them. And then at one point, that stopped. And they started believing in the inherent superiority of Rome above all else. And that's when they fell. And I found that very interesting. It's an interesting parallel here, I feel like.
One thing the clanners believed was true. It would be the assumption that the warlords of the inner sphere were barbarians. And boys and girls, if they hadn't been at the time of the Exodus, they sure as fuck were after 4 succession wars. The clanners had played at war. The Inner Sphere had waged one for 250 straight fucking years.
And fair is fair. You want to call them barbarians? Yeah, fair enough, frankly. Like, sometimes the Inner Sphere can absolutely be barbaric.
And they had a body count in the billions to show for it. The clanners assumed that these people would bend the knee to them, and they were wrong. But that being said, amazingly enough, the clans did unify the Inner Sphere against them. Lastly, I hold the opinion that great men are not born, but are a product of a life spent making numerous mistakes and overcoming tragedy.
Absolutely.
History has shown effective leadership in war comes from understanding your opponent, not dismissing them as lesser men than you are.
I think it's also one of those things where, like, be willing to put your ego aside and learn. Like was mentioned earlier, the whole failure to failure thing. The measure of a man is by how he handles failure. Absolutely. If you fail, it's very easy to kind of go, no, I'm actually a good person because blah, 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 blah. You know, some kind of BS logic there. But no, in that moment, you need to be able to set your ego aside and go, okay, I messed up. Let's learn from this. Teach me better. And in the same way, I think it's very good sometimes to look at the failures of the past. I mentioned this before with, like, the ugly parts of a nation, but also just, like, for example, I keep going back to Rome. Hannibal Barca, very famous, did a great job fighting the Romans, but he messed up in a lot of ways. And rather than looking at the Battle of Cannae, where he was glorious and grand, we should look at his failures as well, and his mistakes, and learn from those more than victory.
I personally find that once you dismiss someone and relegate them to less than your full attention, they tend to rise up and surprise you.
Oh, yeah.
In war, surprises can be rather spectacular. And the clanners sure as shit learned that lesson in full when they received an epic ass-kicking from a jumped-up telecom company in 3052. Because when you underestimate your opponents, sometimes you get folked. And on that note, I'll close with a few historical notes.
God dang it!
For those curious. The clanners continue to celebrate the 24th of August as Founding Day, 2 days short of my own birthday, as that was when General Kerensky said the Exodus was now at an end. It is of note that this is inaccurate, as the SLDF Science Corps surveyed the worlds until September just in case the planets were chock full of nasty parasites, disease, or plants that gave you explosive gut snakes. I must also note that the Prince Eugen was kept in orbit of the clanner homeworld until 3073 as a prison ship.
Oh!
A stern reminder that dissension is one of the worst crimes a clanner can commit.
That's interesting.
That it was until some guys called the Society took it over and blew it up. That's called the War of Reaving, and we'll get to that someday. The clanners still celebrate May the 26th as Clan Liberation Day to mark the end of Operation Klondike. Nicholas Kerensky himself said of the event, quote, "Our victories here have proved the rightness of the way of the clans. Let it always be so among those of the true faith. Let these few words always announce our coming and portend our victory." These words would underline a clan belief in their way of life as a matter of faith and purpose, until Tuki had reminded them that the only thing scarier than eugenics-born, fanatical warriors hailing from an insane police state from beyond the periphery is a jumped-up telecom company. And on that note, Remember to pay your bills, fucko.
Yeah, pretty much. I do think Tukayid is probably Comstar at their coolest, honestly. And it's very fitting that the descendants of the SLDF defeat the descendants of the SLDF, you know.
Anyways, that about wraps it up for now. Next time I have something different. We need to get out of here anyways. This space station is going to hell.
This is the head of security. Martial law starts now. Get all Captain.
Oh
If
dear.
you run, you only die, mate. I am God. I am God.
And yet, something about this place seems so familiar.
Ah, wonderful.
Hey, Discount Dan here with a new and exciting service. But
Oh
first,
boy.
let me ask you something to set up the sales pitch. You ever get tired of morons saying war never changes? Well, you know why? Because they're fucking wrong. War always changes. And just so you're ready for them, I got this new
Hey,
program.
this is true. War does always change. I want to kick whoever like said that with Fallout. Like they always like war never changes. Kicks you in the face. Yes, it does. If war never changes, then why do we not have chariots now? Ah.
To help you with the changing pace of war in a modern world. Introducing Rent-A-Nuke. Got a problem with handle. Got a problem with local tax authorities trying to test your freedoms? Boom, handle. Got a problem with weirdos from the periphery saying batchall and shit? Boom, handle. Weird Facebook trying to tell you about this Blake guy? Boom, handle. The enemy has numbers, technology, and honor? Honest for losers. With Rent-A-Nuke, it's just as easy as boom, handle. With Rent-A-Nuke, the process is simple. Send me money, all your money, and I'll rent you a nuke. If you don't need any more, just send it back. Just put that nuke in the mail and send it back and I'll make sure it's taken care of. Probably. Maybe you only need a nuke for a bit so people will take you seriously. No worries. We got long-term...
Okay, Rent-A-Nuke is a really fun idea.
and short-term rental programs, financing programs, and all that good stuff that totally legitimate rental programs typically have. Because we are one. I got all sorts of nukes. I got big nukes, small nukes, tactical nukes, everything from planet killers down to nuclear hand grenades. Or maybe they're rocks I painted radiation symbols on. Who cares? I got nuclear artillery shells, starship ordnance. Hell, I found a few briefcase models so you can even reenact the periphery uprising or get priority seating at movies. Whatever you want, I got. Whatever you think you want, I got. Whatever you're uncomfortable buying, I will sell you. If you're on the fence about making a purchase, I will push you off of it. I will push you off of it because I'm here to help you. To help you make me money. I ain't saying that just because I found an enormous stockpile of mostly duds people have forgotten about. So come on down to Rent-A-Nuke. Look at the corner of mind your fucking business. I ain't gonna tell you where I am. Who are you?
Oh my word, that's incredible. Hey Tex, what do I need to do to be in the end part of one of these videos? I want to advertise my bar. Come on by, we can pour you like a literal PPC. I do mean a literal one. We'll just railgun you in the face.
The cops? Why so many questions? Remember, for the sake of legal argument, I'm considered a joint stock corporation as a wholly owned subsidiary of an umbrella holding company registered in the periphery. I'm not making a lawsuit because it doesn't exist. It doesn't exist because I just made it up. Or did I? You can't tell. That's why I'm great. Anyways, Rent-A-Nuke. The best solution you never knew you needed. Now 25% off when you buy a dozen. Come on down today because I gotta move these fast. Just remember, I'm Discount Dan because I fucking care. And I will always take your money, guaranteed. Discount Dan assumes no responsibility for irresponsible use of nuclear ordnance and include the destruction of large and small moons, planets, cars, trains, aerospace assets, and legitimate governments and cities. Rent-A-Nuke is a wholly owned subsidiary of my own fucking business LLC, which is a wholly owned subsidiary of How Do You Ask What I Do for a Living Incorporated, which is a shell corporation located far away from regular law and order. Yeet Seed, Cocaine, and Patchall are registered trademarks of Discount Dan. By listening to this disclaimer...
Wait, hold on.
Discount Dan-
But Chal is a registered trademark of Discount Dan. Oh my god. I feel like you're gonna get some clanners on you.
blame for legal action. Compellants are not welcome under any circumstances as they can't be trusted with anything cool.
On the grim streets of Solaris 7, there's one cop too brutal to quit.
I'm afraid you're under arrest.
Yo!
Turbo arrest.
Cop Abby, let's go.
You're just an overgrown meter maid. I ain't afraid of your Humpty Dumpty ass stomping around all slow and shit. I park where I want. Fuck the police.
Evan Cop.
Dealing with some of the most corrupt people in the inner sphere. One man is on a mission to set things right. One AC-10 round at a time.
Hey, you can't arrest me. I park where I want. I'm Duncan fucking Fisher.
I can arrest anyone, actually. It says so on the badge.
How is this even legal?
Because I'm the police. Again, it says so here on the badge.
Coming this summer to a projector near you, Urban Cop 4.
I'd watch the heck out
The
of
Reckoning
Urban
of
Cop
Murder
4.
Town. A mostly true Solaris 7 story of violence, mayhem, and mechs. By mostly true, I mean, we wrote this based on what a guy told us happens outside. We don't go out there. It looks scary and there's rain and stuff. Inside is cozy as hell. Rated RR for, what the hell do these ratings mean anyhow?
What would double R mean? Like, you need to be 16 or older. Not 16, 36 or older to watch? I don't know.
Howdy, y'all, and welcome to the Van Zant Museum of Wonder and Entertainment. I'm Mayor Barnabas Wilberson, and I'd like to welcome you to our humble museum and its many exciting exhibits. We got all sorts of things you might like to see. Come see our Star League exhibit. We got a cup and a napkin.
Waited 30 minutes, no service. This planet is terrible. General Alexander Kerensky.
Come see our pile of logs and driftwood we found in the river, what looks like celebrities. Come see our grilled cheese exhibit.
I tell you, this feels so much like Alpha Booster. Like, it really does. I wouldn't be surprised if there's some overlap between Alpha Booster's stuff and the Black Pants Legion, honestly.
We even got a room you can fart in if you want. It's just empty, so we said, why not?
Wow, this room is so cool.
Remember, Van Zant stands only because we've a 500-year history of being marginally relevant in most matters and strategically irrelevant. Consider us for your next visit to the periphery, and please disregard the pirates on our second moon. Thanks.
Hi, friends. I'm Dallas Houston, and I'm coming to you live from wacky Waco, Texas. And I'm here to sell you a new car. Actually, we're all out of new cars. I'm here to sell you a used car. Nope, we ain't got none of those left either. Hey, you ever find yourself in need to set things on fire? Well, do I have the deal for you. Introducing the Pocket Hibachi. It's a flamethrower that fits in your pocket. Here's how it works. You put the Pocket Hibachi in your pocket, and you wait until the moment comes.
Hey, it's me, your mother-in-law. I just want to show you the napkin.
Take no shit, give no shit. Just set things on fire with the Pocket Hibachi. Find things, burn things. Thanks to hydrazine propellant that even works underwater. That's right. Those fucking geese in the park are dead meat, buddy. Dead meat. Burn cars, burn houses, burn garbage, burn leaves, burn squirrels, burn anything. Pocket Hibachi. Now only 5 easy payments of $99.99. But wait, there's more. Buy a Pocket Hibachi today and receive for free an unwelcome mat. Running on standard 220 plug and a patented copper weave finish, the unwelcome mat will Westinghouse the shit out of anything on your front porch.
Do, just gonna sell some Jesus. Let me just knock on...
Creepy church people, not today. Buy Pocket Hibachi, because the world sucks, and you hate it.
I think these commercials might be my favorite part of the, of these videos. They are very fun. Also, by the way, there's still more, so good lord.
Howdy, you've reached Professor Tex. I'm probably in my office. I'm just avoiding someone I don't like. Leave me a message, and if I don't call back, it's probably you.
Professor Tex, this is Blaine Pardo from the New Avalon Institute of Science. I'd like to ask you to kindly quit referring to an ejection seat as a yeet seat. My students are taking your distance education courses and are picking up some bad manners, and I know this is all your fault. It's not too much to ask. I backed you up on that always shoot Capellans thing back in the day. You owe me one, I think. Also, I ran into your ex-wife, and she still wants to kill you. But, weirdly enough, I think she misses you. It's kind of strange. Good luck with all that. Who'd marry an elemental anyways? I know you like to drink, but holy hell, how did that ever happen? I mean, it had to involve ladders and harnesses and stuff.
Ladders and harnesses? Listen, tall muscle mommy. I mean, look. I am somewhat straight, so I do like my men, but a tall muscle mommy. Also, people in the comments are gonna be like, Armia, totally straight, yeah, right. Because I have like 3 girlfriends.
No wonder you hate clanners. Always hit me up later. I know you're busy with that whole reminding people that the clans were named after something Nicholas Kerensky saw in a petting zoo, but still, give me a call back when you get a chance. We should do lunch.
Hey boss, this is Doves at Company B. Operation Get Clanners Off Your Ass went off well enough, but we had a bit of a snag. Turns out that Steiner group showed up. They're pretty pissed off about the whole luring them into a war zone to fight clanners on the premise there was an Oktoberfest thing.
Oh boy.
Oktoberfest, and boy did those guys look everywhere. They tore everything apart looking for the beer you promised. Clanners, buildings, orphanages, those guys are nuts. We did manage to distract them, but I'd say they may be paying us a visit before long. As it turns out, angry Steiners are far more dangerous than delusional clanners. Also terrifying enough, 4 Atlases are pretty sneaky. After all, nobody can notice if there's nobody left to notice.
Hi there. I was out on the hole looking for things to paint up, and I was wondering between you and I, maybe I could get some more cardboard. I was thinking of making little animations or something. Maybe old video games. I come up with a lot of ideas out here on the hole, you know. Oh, and one time I thought to myself, what if we wore spacesuits all the time? Then nobody would be embarrassed about us farting. Also, nobody could see us frowning or smiling because of the shiny visor thing. Pretty smart stuff there. I mean, you wouldn't be worried about running out of air or anything. Not that we're going to run out of air, at least I hope not. Oh, speaking of, I'm almost done with repairs. Just taking a short tea break. A proper brew does a man good and all that. Do think on the cardboard, we're not using it for anything else, and I think I could put on a good show. I might call it Remember When Games Were Good but Also Made With Love. Look at these little cardboard things I made. Or maybe even Games Made of Cardboard. Or something else. Cheerio.
Right.
This is Firebird down in the bay. Coffee machine is fucked. Again. If I have to switch to instant coffee, I'm gonna make a Pellifor in the rec room again, and you won't be able to stop me. It's not a threat. It's a promise.
Hey, Tex. Duncan Fisher.
Okay, I always find that a really funny thing like that. It's not a threat, it's a promise. It's... Guys, a threat is just a threatening promise.
And, you know, while I leave
it's the promise of violence.
Messages, this is certainly one of them. Why did I even call you? God, my head hurts. Oh, right, that thing. That thing. The thing we did. Remember? I remember it. Surely it wasn't illegal, was it? Or was it about that tattoo? Oh, right, I remember. So, Tex, remember when we had that bet? That awesome bet? Like, hey, I bet we could sneak into the arena after hours and hot rod around town in those assault mechs?
Oh, no.
That was fucking awesome. Right, so, they sent me a bill for the damage we did, and I need you to bail me out of jail. Solaris may be fun, but Solaris jail is not. There's no gambling, and a lot more people crying than I remember. No booze. Well, not unless you pay for it. Anyway, bail me out. You owe me. Don't make me rat you out. Doodles!
Okay, so I'm not sure if this is working, but I had to put this thing called a C-bill into your machine to send you a missive. Your ways are strange. I just wanted to say that I really thought you were staying so I could breathe you, and you proceeded to leave. I am truly really bothered by all of this, and I don't know what to say. I guess I want to express that I am disappointed. Please call me, so I can arrange mutual combat at a place of your convenience. Enjoy the weekend.
This is a message on behalf of the Liren Commonwealth.
Hallo? Hallo, ist da Professor Tex? Der Kommandant ist sehr wütend, dass es kein Oktoberfest gab. Oh Gott.
Oh God, this is the Oktoberfest, guys.
Bis seine Bratwurst bekommt.
Das war kein Oktoberfest! This is a message on behalf of the Draconis Combine.
おい、この恥さらしめ。よくもこんな変魔をしだかして私の顔に
I need to practice my Japanese.
くれたな。何？間違い電話？これは失礼。
Hey Tex, this is Sid. I got a line on the replacement gyro for your awesome. Hard finding some of these parts, but you wanted matching numbers for God knows what reason. But a gyro is a gyro. I have a room full of them and they all work fine. Just stop being paranoid. I'm going to tell you this right up front. It's not cursed. It's an awesome. A vintage model, too, which is my way of saying it should be in a museum, not in combat. But to each their own, I guess. By that, I mean pay me my goddamn money and you'll get your gyro. The failure to pay in full means I'm going to ship you bees. Bees, Tex. Bees.
Bees? This video needs more bees. It looks like this is a job for Dr. Bees.
This is Marshal Sims, Van Zant Free State Marshal Service. This conversation stands as official warning to any attempt to set fire to any portion of government buildings. There is an upper limit on the scale of celebratory fireworks, and sir, PPCs are not fireworks.
What? Come on, they're flashy.
The Corn Dog Festival, and remember, I am the law.
This is Engineering Officer Tom. I got trapped in the wall again, and I need help. Thank you.
It's okay, the gremlins will be by to eat you momentarily.
This is Engineering Officer Catch. Tom's stuck in the walls again, so if you see any disassembled vents, that's what I'm doing. They were bagels, by the way.
This is a message from Comstar. We are always watching. Just wanted to let you know. 7 C-bills have been deducted from your account for this message.
Oh my god.
At the conclusion of this message, your voicemail will now explode.
Well, that was fun. Always like those videos. Oh. More? Oh, there's more. Okay.
What do you expect? Lesson is over. Go to bed.
Okay then.
She even called Nicholas? What is that? Like Nick and Nicholas combined? Nicholas the Mighty.
Nicholas the Mighty. Well, there we go. Well, that was fun. Hope you all enjoyed it. This video took me a little bit to make. I do apologize for that, by the way. I wanted to make it last week, but I ended up being very, very busy. Ended up like having to shove the recording of this into like my morning before the stream. Like, there's literally a stream gonna be live for me, and not when you guys see this. 90 minutes. Although by the time you guys see this, there will be a Battletech stream on that same day. So, if you're interested in that, feel free to check it out. Well, and with that, also a very special thank you to our very important plant Aku, and of course Tato, Olendog, Vreed, Ellie Cute Puppy, and Alex TM on Ko-Fi for your support. If you want to join them or any of the folks scrolling behind me, feel free to check them out down below, and you can simply press the button. Membership is right there. It's $2 a month for the basic version. You get early access to videos and stuff, and you know, like, subscribe, Twitch links, and all of those things. You don't need to click any of them. Feel free to check them out if you want to, though. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye bye.